Okay, on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Stanley Grott, Timothy King, and Kent Marywood. Council's parents, please.
Good morning, LaDonna Logan on behalf of the people.
Good morning, Your Honor. Kayla Kreno on behalf of the people.
Morning, Your Honor. Derek Wilczynski on behalf of the defendant, Stephen Grote, who's behind me.
Your Honor, Mike Smith here on behalf of Timothy King, who's on Zoom.
Good morning, Your Honor. Michael Bobo and Brian Lennon on behalf of Lieutenant Kent Vanderwood, who is the discussed yesterday's for 18 years.
Okay, today is the second day of testimony. And I do have here the people's exhibit list. And these are, well, the motion you filed on the 4th has finally made it to me, but I've already signed it at this point. And so, any preliminary matters before we begin testimony for today?
None for the people, Your Honor.
And for the defense judge, Kristen and Grote.
Known for Mr. King.
Or Kent Vanderwood, Your Honor.
You can call witnesses.
This time the people will call Mr. James Rener.
You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
If you can have a seat, Mr. Renner.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Can you state your name again?
James Rener.
Okay. And I'm just gonna jump right into it. Were you a volunteer for the Republican Party specifically in 2020 and forward?
Yes, I was.
And how did you become involved with Republican Party activities?
Basically by first attending the county meetings and then getting to know individuals within the structure, the chairman and other individuals. And then I request I would volunteer for door activities, putting signs out, traffic control events, things of that sort. All at the request of either the chairman or another member.
And leading up to December 14th, 2020, how long had you been volunteering for Republican Party events?
About 10 years.
And did you attend a meeting at the Michigan GOP headquarters on December 14th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
And how did you come to attend that meeting?
Okay. I was contacted by the chairman of the county, Clinton County Republicans, Janelle Leonard. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you recall when you were contacted?
I was contacted, well, the 14th was a Monday. I was contacted either Saturday or Sunday. That time frame.
And do you recall if this was in person, on phone, or by email or text?
Right. The normal process is by email because I don't respond well to phones. Like phones, I was in business for 50 years and I had to respond immediately, so I don't like phones. So the normal process is email. And I would give a response via email or if necessary, call, but I think all the responses were via email.
Now, you stated you were contacted by Janelle Leonard, and you said you believed it was either the Saturday or Sunday before December 14th, 2020. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and what were you asked to do in that contact?
I was asked to fill in for an elector who could not make it to the meeting on the 14th.
And in the request for you to fill in, were you advised what your obligations would be?
No,
Were you advised what you were filling in for?
this is basically an elector that could not make it.
Were you at least given date, time, and location?
Yes.
And what was that?
The time was at 11:45, it was at the Republican headquarters on Seymour Street that Monday.
Now, before December 14th, 2020, had you held any elected positions?
Yes, I was precinct delegate for 2 terms.
And out of what jurisdiction?
Watertown Township and Clinton County.
And in 2020, were you actively holding any positions?
I don't think I was a precinct. That's a tough question. I was, if I was an election year. I can't remember if I was just coming off, but I don't think I was on the ballot for precinct delegate.
Okay. Now, on December 14, 2020, did you actually go to the meeting at the Michigan GOP headquarters?
Yes, I did.
And where was that located, sir?
On Seymour Street, Lansing,
Okay. And do you recall about what time you arrived?
11:45.
And what happens when you arrive, sir?
I went to the front door, knocked, and gave my name, and they allowed me entrance into the small lobby.
And when you gave your name, did you have to provide any information about why you were there?
No,
You just provided your name and you were allowed entry?
as I remember, that's correct.
What happens next, sir?
Well, then I waited with a small number of people, maybe 3 people in that, the lobby's very small, in that lobby area. Maybe 5 minutes, something of that sort. There's a very short time. And then after that, we were, as a group, called down and led to the basement meeting.
Okay, now the people that you were waiting with in the lobby, did you know any of those people before
No, I
December
did not.
14th? Did you meet any of them on that day? Like my name?
I only really had one relatively substantial conversation, and that was with a dairy farmer from Hillsdale, Maine. Beyond that, not really. I'm not that type of individual unless there's a purpose for engagement. I was more observing what was going on and trying to learn what was actually going on.
Now, you said you and the other people that were waiting in the lobby were called down to the basement area. Do you recall who called you down?
I'm sorry, I cannot. It may have been one of the workers in the area, but I don't know the individual's name.
Did you actually go down to the basement?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and what did you see when you get down there, sir?
We got down there and there was a room that was off the hallway, and there are a number of people in that room, and that's the room that we were led into.
And what happens when you go into the room, sir?
I will make a disclaimer. It's been about 46 months or 40, whatever it is. So memories get hazy. There are a number of people in the room already. And so we were brought in, and he must have been the last one because I think the activities began after we got in. So we were probably the last to come in. And there were people milling about. When we got in, a couple individuals seemed to be more kind of directing things for us. And we were told to sit, find a chair, sit in the chairs, and we took our coats off and placed them on tables behind the chairs and sat down.
Now, did everyone sit?
Well, the room was about maybe twice the size, maybe a little smaller than that. And there were a number of people in the room. There were maybe, well, there was 16 delegates, excuse me. And we all sat, but there are other people in the background that did not, who were standing up, that were not elected.
Okay, now, I have a couple questions about the people in the background. Now, when you say in the background, are they standing up behind the seated electors or are they in front of the seated electors?
let me construct the room for you a little bit. You come in and to our right, that's where we're sitting, to our right, I believe it's the north. And so that was the opposite of the south. So we were sitting on the north wall, of the chairs that were running parallel over the wall or against it. There were tables behind the chairs. Individuals were standing at the standing, but on the southwest, southwest area of the meeting room. Mr. Rodriguez, the individuals that were apparently leading the group were more standing.
Now, you just named two people, Ms. Burden and Ms. Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And you said that they were apparently leading the group. What was it that you observed them either do or say that led you to that conclusion?
Well, a couple of, first of all, I think they were giving us, be seated please, and was the directions. And then they also, memory serves me, led the voting that went on after we got in. Because, and I may be jumping at that, but she asked me what led me to believe, is that the voting, which was to vote in myself as an elected, and the other individual that was also had to be voted as an elected. The second subsequent forms that we were introduced to and signed one set of things, they were identified as officials, president and secretary of the Michigan Electoral Commission, if I remember the titles correctly. And then their interactions during that time when they were either involved or responsible for leading that portion.
Okay, thank you. After you were asked to sit, and I'm just going to go back a little bit, how did the meeting actually start?
That I couldn't, I can't remember. The next thing I remember is that asked us to introduce ourselves, I'm Jim or Steve or Donna or whatever. And then shortly thereafter began the identification of needing to vote, to hold a vote for the two people that were filling the elected vacancies.
And prior to voting to fill those vacancies, was it explained to you why the vacancies needed to be filled?
As to the reason the specific electors did not attend?
No. What was it about that meeting where they needed to fill those vacancies? Was that explained?
This is where the fuzziness, the sequencing of this whole thing is fuzzy for me. And I will explain to you the takeaways from that meeting is that the objective was to develop a slate of Republican candidates.
Well, let me stop you there. Was this explained before you were voted into as a replacement?
I don't, as I remember, after that.
Okay. So if I'm, stop me if I'm summing this up incorrectly. Very shortly after the meeting is started, there is a vote to replace missing electors.
That's correct.
Okay. And how many electors were replaced?
Two. Gerald Wall, whom I was replacing.
And do you recall who the other replacement elector was?
I can't tell you. I do not remember that.
And how did that vote occur?
There's a voice vote by, I think it was moderated by one of the two ladies. And it was a voice vote of to the best of my knowledge, of only the elected.
When you say moderated by one of the two ladies, who are you referring to?
Burden and Ms. Rodriguez.
Now, after the voice votes occur, what's the next thing that happens that you recall?
Well, again, this is sequencing. Okay, this is sequencing. I saw a form that identified myself as an authorized elector. That was signed, I think, by both.
Okay. Now, was there anywhere on that document for you to sign?
Not that I remember.
And did you see this during the meeting?
I had to have seen it in the meeting.
And I'm going to draw your attention to the 5th page of Exhibit 11. I'm just going to ask you if you recognize that page, sir.
That's it, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, Kathy was chairperson, president. So I think my
Okay. I'm just gonna sit that there for now. You don't have to refer to it. Now, did you see any other documents during the meeting?
There were other documents that the electors requested to sign, and only one, I think, if I remember correctly. And that had to do with, I viewed it as identifying that we're electors and qualified to fulfill the function of elected. And it was a form that had all the electors' names printed on it, and then we signed in our designated area.
And where was that document located?
To the best of my recollection, it was on a table. And I believe it was in the same room that the meeting was held.
And you stated that, do you recall how many pages that document was?
I remember at least 2.
And who directed the electors to sign that document?
I'm sorry.
Who directed the electors to sign that
I
document?
think it was one of the ladies, if I remember.
I'm gonna ask you to turn over Exhibit 11, which is in front of you. It's already been admitted. Just looking at that first page, do you recognize that first page?
Can you hold it up, Mr. Rener,
Hold it up.
so we can see it?
Oh, no, no, I don't reckon.
Okay, can you turn to the second page?
That one I do.
Okay. And before we get into what's on the second page, can you look at the third page?
That's the one I was identifying as for the signature.
Now, specifically referring to the second and third page of Exhibit 11,
Okay.
are those the pages that were on the table when you were in the meeting on December 14, 2020?
Best of my recollection, yes, they were.
Is that, and the third page, is that the page that everyone, the Republican electors were directed to sign? Yes, the third page.
Yes.
Okay. And did you in fact sign that page? Did you sign that page?
My signature. Yes.
And when you went to sign that page, there was already a space designated for you, is that correct?
That's correct.
While you, after you all were directed to sign the third page of Exhibit 11, did you hear anyone objecting to signing the document?
No, I did not.
Okay. And do you recall if you saw everyone signing the document, or were you more focused on yourself?
I don't recall seeing anyone.
Okay. What happens after you sign the document? What happens next in the meeting, sir?
Well, then we go back and sit down, and then the dialogue began as to the the objective of the meeting, and that was to present the Republican slate of candidates to the state senate. My takeaway from that is that slate of candidates will be presented along with the Democrat slate of candidates.
Okay, and when it was presented that the Republican slate would be presented to the state senate, did they say when this would be presented?
It had to be presented by 2 p.m. that day.
And so, do you know what happened to assign page 3 as well as page 2 after, after the meeting?
No,
How long did the meeting take, if you recall?
if I remember correctly, if I got there at 11:45, and we left 12:30-ish, because maybe even later than that, an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes, but I think that's stretching it more like an hour, I believe.
And after it was presented that the Republican slate of votes would be presented to the state senate, did any of the Republican electors object to that or have any concerns about that?
Not that I witnessed, no.
So when the meeting ends, what happens next, sir?
Okay, there was kind of a, while people were getting up and signing and doing that. And then after that, the discussion turned to what next events were going to be. And that was going to be delivery of this to the mission center.
And when you say this, are you referring to pages 2 and 3 of Exhibit 11?
That's what I assumed it was going to be delivered, yes, because that was really the only thing that I'd seen, so I assumed that was that. Okay.
Now, other than the document that you saw recognizing you as a replacement elector and pages 2 and 3 of Exhibit 11, did you see any other documents in the basement?
No,
I'm just going to show you what's been admitted as Exhibit 28 and ask if you saw that that document during the meeting.
Mr. Renner, do you mind holding it up so we don't have to spread it around to everybody? Thank you. Sorry, Judge, I don't mean to step on your toes.
got it?
Thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
No,
And that document only has one signature line, is that correct?
yes, and I don't know who would sign it. Oh, it's Burton. Okay. No, I did not see it.
Thank you. Now, after the lull where everyone's signing the document, how was it organized that there would be this delivery to
Okay.
the state senate?
Yeah, there's, obviously there's a lot of chit chat going on and talking about it. There's a lot of energy in the room because they thought, at least we thought that President Trump could stand a chance of becoming the president. So there was energy and there was talking and discussion, but then it was discussed to us that we were the 16 electors were being asked to go park adjacent in the vicinity of the state annex, because the objective was that we would meet and then attempt to present this information to the state senate. Okay, but as a collective, I think as the electors to meet and do that. And so the direction was to meet to park our cars close to the annex and that we would be notified when to gather to meet.
And did you park close to the annex?
Yes, I did.
And were you notified where to gather?
A little, yes, I was. I was called and I was waiting in my car, maybe 5 minutes, something of that sort. And said there was a change of plans and that we were to meet at the Radisson Hotel, obviously in Lansing. And then from there, we would walk to the annex.
Okay, did you actually go to the Radisson?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you said that everyone was to meet in the Radisson lobby?
Correct.
And when you get to the Radisson lobby, did you see other Republican electors?
There's a lot of people milling around, and I caught a glimpse of a couple people that I had seen at the meeting. Okay, and so I thought, well, this had to be the place, and it was. And then it was in the, yeah, it was in the lobby.
And did the group actually walk over to the annex?
A number of people actually did. I can't tell you who. And I can't tell you if they were all elected, because there are other people other than electors, because the room was full and there were only 16 electors. So there had to be people other than electors going over.
Were you part of the group that walked over to the annex?
Yes, I was.
Were you aware that the walk to the annex was actually memorialized on video?
No, I was not until after all the events took place. No, I was not.
And but have you seen the video since December 14th, 2020?
Yes.
And does it accurately depict some members of the group walking over to the annex?
What I saw were, it didn't show, let's just say, I'll be very precise here. It didn't show us leaving the Radisson. It didn't show us queuing up outside the Radisson and walking toward the annex. It didn't show the full period that it took. It sure didn't show the wind and how cold it was, but how many people were there. But I did see snippets of it, and that would represent the walk. Yes, I did.
And at this time, people would move to admit people's proposed exhibit 14.
No objection. No objection.
No objection. Your Honor.
People's 14 is admitted. I would like to publish it. I'm not sure if the bandwidth is going to allow us to play it at real time.
It's always an issue.
Now, having played Exhibit 14, Mr. Renner, are you able to tell us that that does show a portion of the group walking over to the annex?
That's accurate, yes.
Was your group actually allowed into the annex?
No,
And were you in a position to, never mind, withdrawn? Now, when watching Exhibit 14, were you able to see yourself actually walking over to the annex?
yes, I was.
Okay, and what were you wearing on December 14, 2020?
I was wearing a Woolrich, a black cap that was insulated. I was wearing a long, I remember the favorite black, the jacket, coat, winter coat. And yeah, that was it. Now it's a coat.
I'm going to show you what it has been marked as people propose Exhibit 15.
That's
And I'm
it.
just going to draw your attention to the first photo marked as A.
Yeah.
And I believe you already identified yourself in that photo.
That's correct.
Okay, and is that an accurate depiction of the walk over to the Capitol Annex?
It is.
Okay, now I'm going to direct your attention to the last photo in that set marked F, as in Frank.
Okay.
And do you see yourself in that photo as well?
Yes, I did.
And where are you standing in relation to the Capitol Annex?
I am standing at one right in front of the exit door, the door in which the state police were standing at and talking with the, I think she was a female representative. I don't know her name. Yes, that is accurate. That's where I was.
Now, you stated that the group that you walked over with was ultimately not allowed into the Capitol building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and who denied you entrance?
I there were two that I heard. Well, apparently the first individual that was in the picture denied entrance to the representative.
And for purposes of the record, when you say in the picture, we're referring to photo F of Exhibit 15.
Okay. I did not hear that because the wind didn't go. After that, Lieutenant Green began dialogue with another individual by the name of Ian Norton, who was trying to get delivery of the packet of information. What that was, I didn't know. So Lieutenant Green would deliver that to the state senate. Okay? And there I heard it stating that it had the annex and the Capitol had control. I think Lieutenant Green stated that.
Okay. And the packet that you said Mr. Norton was trying to tender to the trooper, did the trooper take that envelope?
No, Lieutenant Green would not take that.
And do you recall when Ian Norton joined the group that you were part of?
I could not tell you because I was walking near the front. I was walking right behind the two ladies that one of whom was attempted to deliver the information. So I could not tell when he joined the group.
Do you know if Mr. Norton was part of the non-Republican elector members who were in the basement of the Michigan GOP headquarters?
Well, the distinguishing feature of Mr. Norton at that day was a camel hair coat, a long camel hair coat. I remember correctly. Give me a time to kind of visualize it. I did not see anyone in the basement wearing a Simmons coat.
What happens after the group is denied access or entrance into the Capitol Annex?
By Lieutenant Green.
Yes.
Okay. After that, it becomes very apparent that the initial objective of the group was not going to be satisfied. It was not going to be information, was not going to be delivered by 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So then, I think Norton began to kind of back away, but then he began, there's media, but here's the door. And there's media that would be to the left of the door, okay? There's me, and there was a camera, if I remember, on the tripod to our right. To the right. Norton engaged with, I would presume, recorded.
And did you stick around for that part?
And
Where
my
did you
objective
go?
was to see
I'm
if.
sorry, Mr.
I'm
Renner, I
sorry.
didn't hear what you said. You
I'm
said, Ms. Logan asked you the question, did you stick around after? I didn't hear your answer. I
Okay, I
apologize.
said no.
Okay.
Okay. And my next question is, where did you go, sir?
Okay, I went to the, my car, then I went to McDonald's, got a nice hot cup of coffee, told my wife, over I said at home.
Was there any further instructions after you left the Senate Annex, I mean, the Capitol Annex?
None that I received.
While you were at the.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. There was an invitation to go back to the hotel and have pizza and hot chocolate. That was the only thing that was said. I couldn't do that.
Do you recall who extended that invitation?
I do not, no.
What, and I'm gonna go back a little bit. While you were at the Michigan GOP headquarters, do you recall taking a photo?
It was I think the last thing we did before the group broke up. Yeah, it was in the base. I think it was in the base. Yes, it was in, I think it was in the base.
And do you recall if there was anyone specifically coordinating the photo, or if this was just something spontaneous?
There was somebody coordinating. I can't tell you who. Specifically because there was, the group was just assembled, okay. It may have been there. But I can't tell you for sure.
I'm gonna hand you, sir, what has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 23, and ask if you recognize that document.
Myself, yes, I do.
And what is that?
That's the group picture.
Was that photo taken on December 14th, 2020?
I couldn't tell you if this is the one that was taken, because the only time I've seen it is we presented it at an early preliminary hearing. The presumption it is, because that was the only time you could get all 16 together.
Okay. People would move to the People's Proposed Exhibit 23.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's 23, so I don't remember if you moved for 15.
I did not.
Okay.
Now, before and after signing of the document in the basement. Try that. Before going to the meeting on December 14th,
Yes.
did you know how an elector was selected, or I guess deemed duly elected in the state of Michigan?
No, I did not.
Before December 14th, 2020, did you know what the duties of an elector were?
I did not.
Before December 14th, 2020, did you know what policies, procedures, and laws were in place to contest an election result?
I do not. Did not. I did not.
And when you were at the meeting on December 14th, 2020, was it explained to you how an elector is deemed elected in the state of Michigan?
Not that I recall. No.
Were the duties of an elected elector explained?
Not that I recall.
Was there any discussion about policies, procedures, or laws set in place to challenge election results. And you were called to this meeting 1 to 2 days before, correct?
That's good.
Did you know going into that meeting that you were going to be signing a certificate of votes?
No,
Was it explained during that meeting that, well, strike that. After you went home that day, did you do anything as far as memorializing what occurred at the meeting?
yes, I wrote a note back to Janelle describing what the meeting was, and I believe the outcome. I don't have those in front of me, but my normal custom is whether it was in business or even outside of business, if someone asks me to attend a meeting for them, I will summarize what the meeting was, what the results were, and send it back to them so they're informed.
And when Ms. Leonard asked you to attend this meeting, did you think twice about saying yes?
No, because I had volunteered for a number of items before. I attended a meeting prior to that about some petition because she couldn't attend it. That came to naught. No, not really.
None of the people would pass the witness.
Give you just a moment, off the record. Sean Daffin. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, people of the state of Michigan versus Michonne Daffin, 21-02, sorry, 03290. Mr. Daffin, you were scheduled somehow for a show cause today, but I think the clerk's office scheduled it today in error, and we did reset it. However, since you're here, I'm going to handle it because it's just a show cause. You were supposed to pay $150 August 19th and be paying $150 monthly on the 19th of the month. It's October. We've not received your payments.
Yes, ma'am. The cash assistance that I was supposed to be receiving was cut off. So I ended up finding a security job that I'll be starting soon.
Okay, when are you gonna make a payment?
As soon as I can get my first check from there. She sent me the papers for my I-9 and stuff, and then they're gonna call me when I can start.
Okay, you have another court date that's scheduled for October 28th. You're gonna reset or continue this till October 28th, so you can give us an update on when you're gonna make a payment, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it 22nd? 22nd?
Yeah.
What's that file?
28.
Let me see, the other file he has is on the 28th.
I resent this one to the 22nd.
It's at the 28th. We'll see you on October 28th at 9:30.
Yes, ma'am.
You're all set. Yes,
We take 5 minutes.
I was gonna, yeah, absolutely. You can see that. Back on the record. Matter of the state of Michigan versus Grot, King, and Vanderwood. You can process it.
Good morning, Mr. Renner. I'm Derek Wilchinsky. I represent Stanley Groth, one of the defendants in this case.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Good.
Good. You don't recognize Mr. Groth from anything other than the proceedings today, do you?
That's correct.
You haven't met him other than today?
No.
You don't recall him being at the meeting on December 14th, correct?
Other than the picture that was shown to me.
And I was going to get to that.
Okay,
You've seen him in the picture, correct?
that's correct.
Other than that, you don't have any independent recollection of Mr. Groth being at that meeting, correct? You don't know when he arrived at the meeting, correct?
And,
And you don't know when he left the meeting, correct?
that's correct.
You do know that he didn't walk to the Capitol with you on December 14th, correct?
I can't make that statement because I was in the front of the group,
Okay,
but he was not within the vicinity that I would be aware of.
okay, you didn't see him on the video that was played by Ms. Logan, correct?
I really wasn't focusing on that.
Okay, we can watch it later
Okay.
if Ms. Logan's kind enough to put it up, but you don't recall, as we sit here today, him actually being there.
That's correct.
You seeing him here today hasn't refreshed your recollection at all to say, oh, he walked with us to the Capitol, correct?
That would be correct.
All right. Now, I do want to take you back to the couple days prior to December 14th of 2020. You indicated that you received what you think was an email from, what was her name, Janelle
Janelle Leonard,
Leonard. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Do you have a copy of that email?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a copy of that
I do
email?
not. I went back and searched and I could not find it.
Okay. Do you know if Ms. Leonard retained a copy of the email?
I don't know.
Did you ask her if she retained a copy of it?
No,
You know if it was in her habit and practice to retain a copy of it?
I do not.
Now, tell me specifically what you remember being in the email. Was it multiple paragraphs, one paragraph, one line? Let's start out with that. How long was the email?
It would be very simple.
Okay, and what do you recall it saying?
Basically, would I consider filling in for a elector that could not make it to the meeting?
And that's it.
That's it.
Didn't tell you the purpose of going other than to fill in.
Not that I remember.
It didn't tell you what an elector was, did it?
Again, not that I.
All right, so you had no idea going into this meeting, other than a generalized knowledge of what an elector was, what you would be doing, correct?
That would be correct.
All right. Now, with respect to the time of the meeting, we had testimony yesterday from Troy Hudson. Do you know who Troy Hudson is?
No,
And I don't know that it matters in the long run, Mr. Leonard, but he had testified that he thought the meeting began around 9 a.m. Your testimony today is that it began at 11:45, and you seem pretty certain about it. I'm not here to argue about it, but why are you so certain that the meeting started around 11:45?
because I had it on my calendar.
Okay. Are you able to access that calendar?
No,
Okay, then when was the last time you looked at that calendar to confirm that it was at 11:45?
Probably months ago. And I had it on when this started up, I had a schedule of sequencing of what actually happened. Okay. And it was 11:45.
Okay, let's jump ahead. I understand. Let's jump ahead sort of to the end, and then we'll work our way through the middle. You testified that you had written a note to Ms. Leonard with a summary of what happened at this meeting.
That's correct.
What do you mean by you had written a note? What does that mean?
Email note to, no,
An email summary,
correct,
a summary in the form of an email.
correct.
When did you do this?
I think it was around 4:30 when I sent it.
On December 14th.
That's correct.
Do you have a copy of that email?
It should be in a packet because I presented it to the Attorney General.
Okay. When did you give that packet that email to the Attorney General?
I don't have a specific date, but they would.
Okay.
Because
What else was in that packet?
I
To the
don't
best
have-
of your recollection, Mr. Renner, I'm not here to quiz you.
Again, it was a sequence of the events that took place. That, from the time I was notified to the various elements of, when Agent Shock called me and that whole sequence, beginning with when Janelle called for attending the meeting, to obviously a time lapse, to the Shock contacted me and everything that transpired as a result of that.
Okay. I'm a little confused now. Let's see if we can clarify. You had written a summary to Ms. Leonard
Of the meeting,
of the meeting on December 14th.
that's correct.
You then wrote, it sounds like a second summary of events for the AG's office.
No, I was keeping that calendar of events because so much was going on once Agent Shock got a hold, contacted.
Okay,
There was a series of events that were taking place, and to keep that straight, I was keeping what you call it, a schedule of who contacted me and for what.
Sort of
Because
like
by then I was also talking with attorneys. on
Okay.
That. So there was quite a time lapse between the initial contact by Janelle, my attending the meeting, and then my getting involved with contact by with Shock, and then my contacting attorneys to represent me in the various meetings of that.
Okay, so you have a summary that you produced from Ms. Leonard, and then a
No,
listing.
a summary of the meeting.
Right,
for Ms. Leonard.
that's what I'm saying, right, that's right. The summary we talked about, that you produced that to the AG's office. In addition to that, you produced sort of a tally of the different events that happened after the meeting? Is that what you're
That's
describing?
That's
Okay,
correct.
what else did you produce to the AG's office?
I don't have that in front of me right now. I would presume that they would have all that information because my understanding of the legal process.
I
that They
understand,
have to turn that over to you.
I agree, but what I'm trying to figure out is what you can recall turning over to them as we sit here today.
Well, I think I turned over the hard copy of the note to Janelle.
Okay.
I turned over the listing that I had, the comprehensive listing that I had. Give me a thought that I have to go back.
Sure.
Right then, I think that's about it.
Okay. Now, you had testified earlier that Ms. Burden and Ms. Rodriguez were standing and sort of directed people to sit
That's my
when the
recollection.
meeting started, correct?
That's my recollection.
All right. And then you indicated that they both led the voting that went on to vote in the electors. I presume you meant the replacement electors, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, all right. And then you had you had testified and you had said that somebody claimed that they were the Michigan Electoral Commission. Do you recall using that term?
It was the title that they had on one of the forms, if I remember.
Okay. Which form, do you know?
It was chairperson and secretary. I misspoke myself when I said president.
No, I understand that. Okay. So is this the form that you're talking about? Let me.
Yeah, please. Yes.
Yes?
Mhm.
Okay. And does that form at some point contain the phrase Michigan Electoral Commission?
Electoral college, I'm sorry.
Michigan Electoral College?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I understand. Okay. That's what had me confused a
Okay.
bit over there as well. Okay. Now, I want to know specifically who had referred to the group as the Michigan Electoral College.
I don't think anybody, I don't remember anybody referring to the group as that.
You just got it off of this.
I got
one.
it off that.
Okay, and it doesn't say Michigan Electoral College, it just says the Electoral College, correct?
Oh, let me see it again.
Sure.
Just for purposes of the record, this is page 5
What-
of the
yeah, it
letter.
says Chairman and Secretary of Electoral College of Michigan.
Right, okay. What I'm getting at with this is nobody represented that you were a group called the Michigan Electoral College, correct?
That's correct.
It was sorry, go ahead.
Let, that I heard or that I was aware of.
That's what I'm saying,
Oh,
right?
yes, that's
And
correct.
just so we're on the same page, Mr. Rener,
Okay,
Mr. Rener, I'm only expecting you to testify as to what you heard or what you
Okay.
got knowledge of. I don't want you to speculate as to anything else. Here's the reason why I'm asking that. My understanding is the Electoral College is the place where the electors go to actually cast their votes on December 14th. Is that your understanding of that?
I don't really have much of an understanding of that. Okay,
Okay. Did anybody say anything inconsistent with that, that the Electoral College was the function of electors going to cast their votes?
okay, can I rephrase that?
Go ahead.
In my, let me rephrase it just so I can clarify and confirm. That what you're saying is the group, did anybody represent that group as the Electoral College?
Yes.
No, not to
Okay.
my understanding, no.
Okay. Did anybody at all represent that group as being something other than 16 electors for the Republican Party?
Not that I heard or was aware of.
All right. Now,
Excuse me.
did anyone at the meeting, this wasn't really clear to me, explain why you were all meeting in a formal or an informal sense?
It was to put together the slate of candidate the second slate that would be presented to the Senate, Michigan Senate.
Okay,
And it was a slate of Republican electors.
and why would that be needed?
Because it was stated to us that the elector, that they had the option of selecting either the Democrat slate or the Republican slate.
That who had the option?
The,
Michigan legislature?
well, whoever was meeting in the state Senate at the time, I don't know if that was a combined meeting of representatives, senators, or if it was more of a defined group who would make the decision. I don't know who specifically that group was.
Okay, and you've used the phrase a number of times, not just with me, but with Mr. Hogan. It was explained to us, it was told, who specifically told this to you?
I can't tell you specifically,
Okay,
and the reason is I can't remember exactly because of the structure of the meeting. I do understand, I do think that some of the discussions came from, or most of the discussions, if not all, came from either Ms. Burden or Ms. Rodriguez.
okay. Now, you had talked about the makeup of the room. Well, actually, let me back up. You had answered the question with regard to you replacing Gerald Wall
Correct.
as an elector. And the question was asked, was there a voice vote of only electors for that? Who else could have been voting that day?
But there are more people in the room other than the elected.
Okay, who else was in the room?
Those individuals standing in the background. I don't know who they were because there were no introductions.
What were those individuals doing? You said standing in the background. Were they taking notes? Were they talking amongst themselves?
There was some talking amongst themselves.
All right, did you overhear anything that any of these individuals said?
No,
How many individuals were there?
I didn't count.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's try to get a range.
Approximately 10, maybe. Yeah, that would be a decent number, 8 to 10.
8 to 10. And how were they dressed? Were they in suits? Were they in jeans?
If memory serves me, most were in business attire.
Okay. You had indicated earlier that Ian, I think his last name was Northland, had a camel-haired overcoat on. Did you mean camel-colored?
Camel color.
You don't know what the material was, right? So you mean like a tan color?
It looked like, yes, correct.
All right, was he, and he wasn't in the building as far as you could recall?
I didn't see a camel hair coat in the building. That's
Were
correct.
all of these people wearing overcoats?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Now, with respect to, I want you to walk me through the meeting from start to finish. So the meeting starts essentially with Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Burden telling everybody to take their seats, correct?
Correct.
And then the next thing that happened, if I understand your testimony from earlier, is that there was voting to replace the two electors who weren't at the meeting.
That's correct.
And was there any significant discussion regarding the replacements?
No,
Okay,
not that I remember.
all right, pretty much Mr. Renner and somebody else are here to be replacements, would
Right.
like to vote. It was a voice vote, right?
Yes,
It was a unanimous voice vote as far as you could tell.
you can never tell if the voice vote's unanimous. It was a voice vote and they accepted it as unanimous.
You don't have any reason to think that somebody didn't vote for you.
No,
Okay, nobody said nay, right?
not that I heard.
Not that you're aware of. All right, then what happened next after the voice vote was taken and you are now an elector? What happened after that?
Okay, as I said, things started to get kind of fuzzy, okay, because
understand.
of the process. Somewhere along the line, I was shown that form that said I was an official elector.
Okay, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
When you say you were shown at some point in the meeting, you mean somebody came up to you specifically while the meeting was going on and said, here's your form? Okay,
No.
how did that happen?
I
Tell me.
can't remember, it was, I can't remember to tell you the truth, because things
Okay.
were happening, okay. So beyond that, then the discussion after the voice vote was done, then the discussion moved over to signing the form.
Okay.
Signing the form.
And by that form, you mean the certificate of electors that you're looking at right there?
No,
Okay.
I'm talking about,
Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one.
yeah, I'm talking about.
Okay, now,
Okay.
let's talk about that for a minute. Who led the discussion with respect to the signing of that form?
To the best of my knowledge, the best of my recollection, it was one of the ladies.
Okay, Ms. Burden or Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
All right, and how did, I know this is fuzzy for you, but I have to keep probing as you come.
I understand.
We need to figure out what happened. Do you know how that was introduced? That topic?
It was in, as reference to that you're an authorized elector.
Okay,
And that to sign this signifying your, if I remember correctly, signifying that you're an elector and that you met on this day. Okay,
okay.
that would then lead into developing the slate of candidates.
What do you mean?
I
the
mean,
slate of candidates?
The slate of electors. So that
Okay.
would be presented to the state senate.
And did you think there was anything wrong with that?
No,
Why not?
because they were an authority and they said that this was legitimate.
You were following the lead of whoever it was that was leading the meeting at that point.
That's correct.
You didn't believe that there was anything nefarious about declaring, let's back up for a second.
Sure.
So was there any attorney that gave you legal advice with respect to what you were being asked to sign and why you were being asked to sign it?
Not to my recollection.
All right, now let's turn a page earlier in that document. We talked about this yesterday with Jonathan Brader from the Bureau of Elections. You see what we're looking at there?
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, according to that document indicates that your electors are casting 16 electoral votes for Donald Trump for president and 16 electoral votes for Mike Pence as vice president, correct?
That's correct.
That document doesn't ask anybody to do anything, does it?
Let me read it because.
Go ahead,
Okay.
take your time.
For purposes of the record, it's page 2 of exhibit 11.
That's correct.
Okay, that document doesn't command anybody to do anything, does it? That document doesn't force anybody to do anything, does it?
That's correct.
I know you weren't here yesterday, but I'll take you back to the question that I asked Mr. Brader when he testified. That document is, for the most part, informational only, isn't it? Sure.
That's correct.
Okay, now, believe on December 14th of 2020 that you were an elector, correct?
That's correct.
Because you were voted in by the other electors of the Republican Party, granted to fill a position, but that's why you believe you were an elector, correct?
That's correct.
All right. You weren't well versed at that point with Michigan election law, were you?
That's correct.
As we sit here today, you're still not well versed with Michigan election law, aren't you?
That's correct.
All right. Now, all right, as far as you knew, you all called each other electors at the meeting on December 14th, right?
If there, I don't think we went up.
I was just gonna clarify that. You didn't go up to each other and say,
No.
hi, I'm Elector Rener, right?
No. we
But-
did not do that.
But during the course of the meeting, you were referred to as electors.
That's correct.
All right, and you found nothing wrong with it, correct?
That's correct.
Now, with respect to that document, do you know if it's, you don't know if it's a public record, do you?
This one?
Yes,
Uh,
you'd be guessing, wouldn't you?
I would be guessing yes.
All right. With the signing of that document, did you intend to deceive anybody?
Absolutely not.
Did you intend to cheat anybody?
No,
All right. Did you intend to represent yourself as something that you were not?
no,
As far as you knew, on December 14th of 2020, everything in that document was accurate, correct?
correct.
And you had no reason to think otherwise,
That's correct.
correct? Okay. You had no intent on December 14th of 2020 to try to defraud anybody, correct?
That's correct.
All right, now, let's get back to the purpose of that document. You testified earlier that that document was to be taken to the legislature because it was explained to you that the legislature could decide, and there was a possibility that the legislature could decide that Donald Trump was the victor in Michigan, correct?
That's correct.
Right, why? In other words, was it ever explained to you why this would happen?
Not really. I think and again, this is my thought on it.
Yep.
I was approaching because there was an undercurrent of fraud and a lot of controversy during that time. And that was my thought is that possibly the legislature would take that into consideration, or the combined group, or whoever they are.
What did you do for a living, Mr. Rener?
I did a lot of jobs, but I mean,
Primarily.
when I retired,
Yeah, sure.
oh, well, I was in corporate management.
Okay. Being in corporate management, you have some level of intelligence, right? You think of yourself as a pretty bright guy, don't you?
Certain days, yeah.
Certain, right. Some days are better than others.
Yes.
All right. You follow the news.
I Some of it, but some of it I don't anymore.
Back in 2020, you were following this election, right?
That's correct.
Just like the rest of us in this country, right?
That's correct.
You understood that there were lawsuits pending regarding the counting of votes in Michigan, right?
I didn't follow it that closely. There were a
Okay.
couple things that I was watching and I was very concerned with.
What were you watching and what were you concerned with?
One was the signed affidavits that were coming out of the Detroit County Center
Okay,
and the ill treatment and mistreatment of the Republican the counters and also the inaccuracies that were coming out as a result of. And so I was following that more closely than anything else because everything else changed day to day and it was hearsay. But when you sign an affidavit, a sworn affidavit, and you put that on record, that got my attention.
because that's a statement under penalty of perjury.
That's correct.
Was there anything else that you were concerned with other than the counting that you described in the affidavits that were produced in the ill treatment?
Well, again, that was all hearsay. I mean,
Sure.
It was the affidavits that really got me concerned.
Okay, and did that factor into your analysis on December 14th when you were told that we need to submit this because there's a possibility that the Michigan legislature might accept this? That was one of the bases that played into you thinking, yeah, this sounds legit to me.
It had some consideration, but yes. It had some
What else gave you consideration in addition to what we just talked about?
Well, in positions that I've held, I've been responsible for a lot. And I have relied on statistical analysis to provide basic facts. And when an individual goes to bed the night of the election, and one candidate ahead by 145,000 votes, you wake up the next morning, 1,000 votes. I have never received a new statistical analysis and explanation of how that could happen.
So based on your experience working in the corporate world, sounds like you thought something was off on those numbers based on the time that you went to bed, the time that you woke up.
I could not understand how that happened.
And more than a month later, it still hadn't been explained to you.
That's right.
All right. I guess the key here is go to bed like I do, Mr. Rener, at 3 a.m. and the numbers came much closer then. So, all right, now. I think you had testified earlier, you didn't see any of the 16 electors other than yourself actually sign the signature page.
That's correct.
Okay. Was the signature page stapled to the page you're looking at right now when it was signed?
Yeah, that's been asked many, many times.
I'm sure it has.
As much thought I put into this, I cannot remember.
All right. Is it possible that the pages were separate and not stapled?
Could have been,
And they could have been attached, you just don't know.
absolutely.
All right. Let me take a look at that document real quick to make sure that we can just flip one more page. Go to the first part of, it's the first page of exhibit 11, thank you. You testified earlier, this is the page entitled memorandum.
Hmm.
Yes? That page is entitled memorandum at the
That's
top?
correct.
Okay, you testified earlier, you did not see that document.
That's correct.
When was the first time you did see it?
When it was shown to me in court.
Today? Or during one of the previous exams?
I can't tell you. I can't tell you. But I.
Let me ask
I've not seen this.
Okay, let me ask it to you a different way, Mr. Rener. You are sure, though, that you did not see that document on December 14th at the meeting at the Republican headquarters in Seymour Street?
That's correct.
All right. With respect to the document that you signed, Did you actually see both pages on December 14th, regardless of whether they were stapled or not stapled? Did you see both pages on December 14th? Not on a later date, but on that specific date?
Okay, that's the signature page, that's this page,
That's correct.
and then this page,
That's correct.
yes,
You did see them both on December 14th.
yes.
You didn't learn about it on some later date, later
No.
time. Okay. Let's pick what pages. What are they? Okay, exhibit, we've identified exhibit 11, pages 2 and 3. Now, with respect to the meeting, I want to get back to it. You had said you got voted in,
Yes.
and then there was some discussion about the document that's contained in exhibit 11, correct?
Right.
How long did that discussion last?
Not long.
You said you, sorry, go ahead.
Not long.
Okay, couple, like, when you say not long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Oh, I, know, closer to 5.
Okay. And you think it was the ladies that led that discussion?
Memory serves me, yes.
Okay, do you recall any other individuals from the 16 electors discussing that document?
No.
All right. Was the discussion, from the best that you can remember, pretty much, look, we have a document here we'd like you to sign that would be taken to the Capitol, and it indicates that your vote would be for President Trump and Vice President Pence? And kind of limited to that? Or was there any substantive discussion?
No, it was my understanding that this was the development of a slate of slate of electors that
Okay,
would be presented to the
legislature,
the legislature, yes.
an alternate slate.
Alternate slate, yes.
All right. After, well, when in the course of these events did you sign the document? So let me recap, right? We talked about you and the other elector being elected. Then the discussion about exhibit 11, pages 2 and 3. And then we're going to turn to the next thing that was talked about at this meeting in a little more detail. Have you signed the page at this point?
What's the next thing that you're going to talk in more detail?
You're going to tell me that.
Oh, okay.
So up to this point in the meeting, we've covered 2 events.
Yeah.
Well, 3. Sit down. We need to elect a couple of electors, and we're going to talk about what is exhibit 11, page 2 and 3. Up to this point in the meeting, have you or anybody else signed this document?
Not that I was aware of.
Okay, what's the next thing you discussed then?
That developing the slate of candidates,
Okay,
that would be the signing of the document,
okay,
okay?
Yep.
And then, once that was done, then the process that would be used for us to assemble, and to physically assemble, and then at the state annex, in an attempt to present it,
okay,
because it had to be presented by 2 o'clock.
okay. I understand now. And so when did the signing occur for you? I know you can't remember anybody else who signed it, okay? When did the signing occur for you? After you discussed the process for delivering it, or before that?
Before.
Okay, so you discussed the document, signed the document, and then there was, and then there was discussion about how to go present, right? Yes, you have to say yes out loud for the court
Oh,
reporter.
yes.
Okay, I don't care, I can see you shaking your head, but I don't want to put her job at risk, so. All right, so who was it that led the discussion about how you were going to go present it? Again, the 2 ladies?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
All right, now, you had testified earlier with regard to this discussion that you were told to park near the annex.
That's correct.
All right. Do you recall, and have we covered now the whole meeting? Or did anything else happen after the discussion as to how to present it?
No, I think we covered most of it.
Okay,
Not most of it, but I do think we covered it, yes.
okay. Have we covered all of the substantive parts of the meeting?
Yes, we have.
In other words, there may be some, I don't know, you grabbed a cup of coffee or you grabbed a cookie or something. I don't care about that. I don't think anybody does, right? But other than that, sort of the secondary or tertiary things that would happen at a meeting like this, we've covered everything of substance,
That's
right?
correct.
All right, now, at the meeting itself, you had made the decision, yes, I'll go with whoever's going to deliver it, correct?
That's correct.
All right, was there an understanding at the meeting that was talked about by anyone, and I'll ask you to identify this, as to who was going to the Capitol or who was not going to the Capitol?
I think the discussion was directed to the electors.
Okay,
So it was the electors that
Yeah.
were going. Okay.
and my mistake, not a great question, because I was limiting it to the electors. Here's what I'm getting at. Did any of the electors say, oh, I'm in, or did any of the electors say, look, I just can't go, I'm out? Do you know that one way or the other?
Not that I heard.
Okay, and you know from looking at the video, not all 16 electors went, right?
I couldn't tell you that.
Okay. Did you see 16 people in the video congregating at the Capitol?
I was in the front, so I wasn't counting.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I'm talking about today when you watched it.
Yeah.
I didn't, you may not have been paying attention to counting, but I certainly didn't see all 16 electors. You would agree with that?
I can't agree because I don't know.
You just don't. Okay, fair enough. The video will tell. Was there anybody though that you recall saying affirmatively, yes, I'm going to go to the Capitol with you?
No.
Was there anybody that you recall affirmatively saying, I'm not going to the Capitol?
No,
Did you know whether my client, Mr. Grote, was sick that day?
no.
And do you know whether well, strike that. With respect to Exhibit 11,
Yeah.
did anybody, well, strike that, let me ask it to you again. With respect to Exhibit 11, nobody discussed mailing that document anywhere as far as you know.
That's correct.
The only mechanism of transmitting that document to anybody other than the 16 electors was, as far as you knew, was walking it over to the Capitol.
Correct.
All right. You didn't think anything was wrong with walking that document over to the Senate, correct? Or to the Capitol?
No,
You weren't intending to cheat or deceive anybody by walking that document over to the Senate.
no.
In fact, you were being transparent and above board by walking it over and trying to deliver it to the Senate, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Did you watch Mr. Northen's statement that's on the YouTube video? Have you ever seen that?
The AG showed it to me.
Okay. Did you find anything to be fundamentally incorrect with what he had said?
No, not really, but I'm not an attorney, but
I understand.
no, I did not.
And I'm not asking you as an attorney, I'm asking you in your capacity as someone who was an elector back in 2020,
Right.
was the CEO, I don't know if this is CEO, you said corporate management, right? You didn't find anything to be incorrect about what Mr. Northen said?
Not that, I can't recall the entire conversation, but nothing comes out.
Right, and the reason I'm asking it to you this way without even showing it to you is I'm trying to find out if there's anything that sticks out in your head today as saying, look, I watched that back when the AG showed it to me and it still sticks out. He was just wrong about fill in the blank,
Mhm.
right? There was nothing like that.
I did not see anything of that nature. That's correct.
Okay. When you had testified earlier, you stated that the collective, meaning the electors, discussed that they were to park close to the annex and would be notified where to gather.
They didn't discuss it. It was asked, it was one of the requirements that they park near the annex. They didn't discuss it.
Who's the they you're talking about?
Well, you said that the electors discussed it.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out. So who told you to park near the annex?
It was, I think it was one of the ladies.
Okay, and did they, where I'm going with this though, is the part of this where you had testified that you would be notified where to gather. How were you notified where to gather? By what?
By phone.
By phone, by text or by call?
Well, I was called.
Okay, who called you?
I can't tell you. I really don't know.
Male or female?
Male.
Was it somebody that you knew? Like prior to December 14th?
They didn't show up. I mean, it didn't show up on the call. You know, if it was somebody I knew, that meeting I had the number in my phone, it would have shown up by name. But no, I did not recognize the number, the name, or excuse me, I did not recognize the voice that contacted me. But I assume, obviously, they knew what we were doing. Okay.
Yeah.
Somehow they had my number.
Okay.
So I put those two things, and they already knew what our purpose was. So I assumed it was somebody from the party.
Okay. You had also indicated earlier that there was an invitation to go back to the Radisson Hotel?
Yeah.
For pizza and coffee?
Yeah.
Who mixes pizza and coffee? It's a terrible combination.
That's what it was.
All right. Now, who, sorry, Judge?
I wasn't gonna say it, but.
Well, it may have been hot chocolate too, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like a pizza and pizza and a beer, I get that, but there's just certain things that don't work together. All right, who gave this?
I could not tell you. It was, first it was given at the Radisson when we collected it,
Okay,
first of all. And then I think there was some mention of it as we departed. I can't tell you because my focus was on, I'm out of here, I'm cold, and I want to talk to you.
yeah, I got that. So you talked about it as you were walking to the Capitol?
No, there was no, I had no discussion. Walking, it was discussed at the Radisson, okay, in the lobby.
Okay,
And then it was, somebody reiterated it as we broke up. I don't know who it was.
okay. Just 1 second, Your Honor, I'm almost done.
Excuse me.
You didn't see my client at the Radisson, did you? The last thing I'm going to ask you, Mr. Renner, is based on the testimony that you've given me, you don't think you did anything wrong on December 20th, do you?
No,
Nothing further, thank you.
Oh, sir. My name is Mike Smith. I represent Mr. King.
okay. That's fine.
I have a few questions for you. You have an exhibit 11
Yes.
in front of you. You indicated under oath that you saw pages 2 and 3 of exhibit 11 on December 14th, 2020 at the meeting in the basement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Was that the first time you saw that document?
Yes,
That document consists of 2 pages, correct?
that's correct.
And you also stated in your testimony that you don't recall if they were stapled or together. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall if page 2 was on another table vis-a-vis page 3? If you recall.
You know, using logic, I would say they're together, but I can't recall it. Okay, so since I cannot give you an absolute answer, I'm gonna have to answer. I don't recall.
You don't
I can't
recall.
remember.
Did, Mr. Renner, did you ever happen to review page 2 of exhibit 3 or exhibit 11, excuse me?
Page 2 means that.
That is correct, sir. When did you review that?
Well, I skimmed it at the meeting, okay,
When you say you skimmed it at the meeting, what does that mean?
on the 14th. I looked at it. Did I read it word for word? No, not.
So you did not read it word for word, but you skimmed it. Did somebody give you page 2 of Exhibit 11 to review?
I think it was somewhere on the table, or I viewed it at the table. At the meeting. So what, it must have been at the table.
Was there anyone at that meeting that explained to you what page 2 was representing?
Not that I recall. No.
Did anybody at the meeting explain to you what page 2 references?
No, I think we.
I'm just asking you a question. Yes or
Okay,
no, sir?
no. Let me hold that.
Excuse me,
Let
sir.
do some
Excuse
more
me.
thinking.
Excuse me. Mr. Rener, that is your signature on page 3 of Exhibit 11, correct?
Yes, it appears to be.
Do you remember signing that document?
Yes, I do.
And Mr. Rener, is this a correct statement that you would never have signed page 2 of exhibit, excuse me, page 3 of Exhibit 11 if it was intended for any fraudulent purpose? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. Couple short questions, Mr. Rener. You indicated in your previous testimony here today that that down in the basement you were voted in as an elector. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that was a verbal vote.
Voice vote, correct.
Voice vote. Okay. So you believe you were elected as an elector, correct? You believe you were duly elected, correct?
That's correct.
And do you believe that you were qualified as an elector because you were duly elected?
That's correct.
Do you recall if there were any other documentation that was there at the basement that day that was there for any type of explanation of why?
No. It was. It was. It's where I was notified I was truly an elector.
Okay, yes. Okay.
That
Thank
was
you,
the
sir.
only one.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there was, do you remember an attorney, Ian Norton? I might be misspelling or mispronouncing his name. Okay, do you know the attorney I'm talking about?
He was the individual that was talking with Lieutenant Green outside of the annex.
Correct, the one that you identified as a camel colored coat, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Was he down in the basement, do you recall?
I did not recall any camel colored coat.
Did you ever talk to him that day?
No.
Did you ever hear him speak that day?
Yes.
And what was he saying?
He was talking with Lieutenant Green. And then after that, he was talking with media concerning the right certain legal issues associated with presenting the information. And beyond that, that was it.
The summary of the meeting that you described, that you wrote at approximately 4:30 on December 14th, was that on your computer or was that handwritten notes?
Computer.
And about how many pages was that, or how many paragraphs was that, if you can recall?
It was maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs. It
Okay,
was
so
less than a page.
so you would say it was a short summary? Would
That's
that be correct and
That's
accurate? So that summary did not go over into every specific detail of that particular day, did it?
That's
I don't have any further questions here.
Right, Mr. Rener. My name is Michael Bowe. I represent defendant Camp Vanderwood in this case. Really quickly, this is your third time testifying at the examinations for these elector defendants, correct?
correct.
And you're doing so pursuant to a cooperation agreement or plea agreement with the
That's
prosecution.
correct.
And that came after you were charged with the same offenses as those other defendants.
That's correct.
Now, one of those offenses I said, is the client, Mr. Ken Vanderwood. You know Mr. Vanderwood?
No, I do not.
You remember having interactions with Mr. Vanderwood?
No.
You remember seeing him on December 14th, 2020?
I don't even know. I'd have to be shown a picture of Mr. Vanderbilt.
So looking at the photo that the prosecution handed you earlier, you couldn't actually identify who that man is in that photo.
That's correct.
So going back, I know that the other attorneys have covered a lot of this with you, so I'll try to be as brief as I can, but I have some similar questions. So prior to the meeting on December 14th, 2020, you didn't know what the purpose was other than they needed an additional lector, and so you volunteered to go, or you agreed to go.
I agree with
And they didn't tell you anything about what the purpose of that meeting was until sometime after you arrived.
That's correct.
And you got to the headquarters, kind of checked in, they took you down to the basement for the meeting.
Right.
Was there any other meetings while you were there? Did they ever take you upstairs to a different room, or did this all occur in the basement?
To the best of my knowledge, it was all in the basement.
Now, you testify that you're not sure of everyone that was in that room, but it sounds like there were more than just the 16 electors, right?
That's correct.
Are you able to, and only if you're able to, give an estimate of how many people were in that room?
Okay, I'll try. Because they're all in the southwest area, like, okay. Roughly 10, 12.
So roughly 10, maybe 12 people in addition to the 16 electors.
That's correct.
And can you identify any of those 10 or 12 other people that were not electors?
No, again, when I came down, I'd never met any of these people before. I didn't know their names until after we put the introductions. And those individuals were not part of the quickie introductions. They never introduced themselves, nor their functions. Okay, so they just kind of were background, if you want to call it that. And since the meeting, I'm not a glad hander going up and meeting people cold, but the meeting was structured so it didn't allow that time to occur because there was a time constraint, the 2 o'clock timeline. So there really wasn't an opportunity to ask questions to get to know people or whatever.
I understand that there was this timeline you needed to abide by. We'll get to how you learned about that in a minute, but so you didn't find it odd, or did you, that none of these other people in this basement meeting introduced themselves or explained why they were there?
I found it somewhat odd, okay, as you would say, but being a newbie to this, I was always involved in county or precinct politics, okay, not the state or anything other than that. And I didn't know if they were advisors. I didn't know if they were just observants.
Lawyers, maybe?
Could have been lawyers. So I just focused on what we were supposed to do.
You don't know then who any of those other people, aside from the electors, would have been affiliated with, say, the Trump campaign or Michigan Republican Party.
That's correct.
You were asked earlier about Troy Hudson from the Michigan Republican Party. Do you know Mr. Hudson?
I do not.
How about Stuart Foster? Do you know who that
I do
is?
not.
Laura Cox?
The name came up in the past. I don't know her.
Mike Ambrosini?
No, I do not.
About Tony Zan
No,
or Henrietta Tell?
no.
So you wouldn't know if any of those people were there or not there that day.
I wouldn't because I've never been introduced to them and I cannot attest. I don't know who they are.
I understand, sir. That's all I was looking for. And then you heard the name Sean Flynn. You don't know who Sean Flynn is?
That name, yes, I was shown a picture in, I think by the AG, and I do remember him. I think at one of the meetings we had with the AG, because they showed pictures of you, recognized these individuals, and he stood out, and so I did recognize him.
Were there any other Trump campaign individuals or RNC individuals, not from the Michigan Republican Party, national or Trump campaign officials that you were able to identify for the Attorney General's office?
None,
You don't know.
no. If I remember correctly.
Now, sir, I want to ask, how many times have you met with the Attorney General's office? In addition, I know that you met before the charges. Since then, how many times have you met with someone from the Attorney General's office?
Well, we really met as a collective once, okay? And then that's basically it. They interviewed me and asked what in great detail concerning the events that happened. And that was it.
And that's when they had you identify pages 2 and 3 from what I believe is prosecution of the 11th from you.
That's it.
Can I borrow prosecution or defense?
No.
Mr. Rener, I'm handing you what's been marked as defense exhibit A. Do you recognize that document? Have you ever seen that document before today?
Yes, I did. I saw it last night.
And that, so the first time you ever saw this document was last night.
That's correct.
Do you know how you got the document last night?
Yes, I do.
Are you able to tell us on that?
Well,
Yeah.
It
If
hasn't,
it came, if it was conversation with the attorney, or anything, I don't need to know, but you
Okay.
saw this document yesterday.
yes,
I'm going to, well, actually, why don't you hang on for a minute? I have a couple more
Okay.
questions, sir. So you testified earlier that essentially, as you understood it, your perception was that Kathy Bird and Myra Rodriguez were sort of leading this meeting in the basement.
that's correct.
Okay. Do you see Kathy Burden's signature on that document, Fence Exhibit 2 anywhere?
Yes, I do.
And how do you know it's her signature?
Well, you see,
Is her name below it?
her name is below,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't expect you to actually recognize her signature on its own. Okay. So in your meetings with the Attorney General's office, they never showed you this document or any version of it, signed or unsigned?
I don't recall it.
Okay. So when you met with the Attorney General's office, they handed you prosecution exhibit 11, asked if you recalled that document, correct?
Yes,
And you identified that you remembered page 2, not page 1, pages 2 and 3 of that document,
that's correct.
page 3 being the signature page.
Correct.
And you can't recall if any of those documents, prosecution 11, were stapled together or if they were spread out unattached to one another. You don't remember.
That's correct. Well, can I,
Please, yes, sir.
we're only talking about the first 3 pages, correct? Because my notice that I was a elector was not part of that. It was, I saw it at a later time or during the meeting. I can't tell you when, but if memory serves me, it was not part of the form that I signed. It was not in that at that time.
And just so we're making a clear record, sir, you're talking about the document within the page, within prosecution exhibit 11 that you're holding there. That indicates that you have been substituted for the other elected.
That's
president,
correct.
That's page 5 of prosecution exhibit 11, I
Correct.
believe. Okay, so that document, it says Gerald Wall and James Rener.
Yeah.
That document, page 5 of prosecution exhibit 11, that was separate from the first 2
That's
and
correct.
3 pages that
Yes.
you recall.
And the reason is I asked for a copy of it, never got a copy of
Do you remember who you asked for a copy of it? At the meeting, you mean?
it. I can't, either one of the 2 ladies, if I'm correct.
You don't exactly recall when this additional document with your name on it, page 5 of page prosecution 11 was given to you or provided to present.
That's correct.
So it is
Well, it
possible.
wasn't given, it was shown to me, and I asked for a copy of it.
So they wouldn't give you a copy of it. Someone showed it to you, but you don't exactly remember when it was showed to you.
That's correct.
It could have been separate and apart from those first 2 and 3 pages of the exhibit that you discussed with the Attorney General's office, confirmed you signed page 3.
That's correct.
So you don't recall all the pages in prosecution exhibit 11 being presented at any time in one place. Yes.
That's correct.
Is it possible then? And I'm just asking, is it possible that defense exhibit 2, the other document that I handed you, with Kathy Burden's signature on it, is it possible that that got lost in the shuffle somewhere? It could have been presented and you just don't know?
Is it possible?
Is it possible, sir?
Well, I would say anything is possible because of the time frame that I think we're being rushed through because I asked a couple questions, none were answered.
Let me pause. Let's take that in front, sir. So who is rushing you through?
I think of the people that were running the meeting, and I would say, and Ms. Rodriguez,
And then you said you asked some questions.
Yeah.
Who did you ask questions to? And what did you ask?
probably those 2.
And what questions did you
Well,
ask?
one is, can I have a copy of this? No response. I think another question is kind of off the top of concerning the process. How long is this going to take? What's the objective? They finally eventually stated the objective, so that was answered for that at a later time. It was basically those 2 things. Okay. that were never answered. And there weren't many questions coming from the other participants either. So it was kind of like an atmosphere that was not conducive because we were under a time constraint. We found out that all this stuff had to be delivered by 2:00.
And you testified earlier because it seemed that, you know, you didn't think anything was wrong with this plan because these people were sort of authorities, I believe what you said.
Yeah.
I remember that. Why did you think that they were authorities?
Well, one is I saw the form, okay, that had their titles, okay. And as the other attorney pointed out, that Ms. Burden was chairperson and Ms. Rodriguez was the secretary of the, I thought it was Electoral Commission, but it's Electoral College Commission. Because when I read that, because it was on the form that authorized me, okay, as an elector, I thought they had the authority to do things of this sort. Okay, and they were my impression of running the meeting.
Those impressions are based on your limited experience, not at state or national, but it sounds like local and county politics.
County, yeah, county and precinct, correct.
And it's based on your knowledge that you were asked to show up and be a substitute elector,
Correct.
but you weren't asked to do anything else before that, other than to show up that day.
Correct.
And so you're under a compressed timeline.
Yes,
They were rushing you through.
that's the feeling I had.
Not a lot of other people were asking questions, as best you can remember.
That's correct.
You asked some, but you didn't really get answers to them. And we'll come to the one you got an answer on the objective later. You were asking questions and not really getting much feedback.
Right.
And so you trusted these people.
Yes, I did.
Because if you hadn't, you would not have done this. That was your testimony,
That's
right?
correct.
Because you didn't know this was illegal at the time. Or allegedly, and you believe that there was a legal justification to do this.
We were told it.
You remember who told you that?
No, I don't. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize, sir.
I
It's
just,
quite all right. Now, we're gonna come back to the question of what is it possible that you ever, that Defense Exhibit 2 was there and signed in that meeting? And I'll turn your attention to page 2 and have you look at the notary block and read the date there.
Is it Defense Exhibit 2?
Sorry, I'm getting that mixed. It's my apologies. This is Defense Exhibit A. Page 2 of that document, sir. What is the date in that notary block?
December 14th.
And that's the same date that you met the Capitol.
Yeah, I do. Well, they could have had a notary there. I just didn't see any of them.
But you saw Kathy Burton, correct?
Yeah, yeah,
And she was the leader of this meeting.
that's how I took it, yes.
And as you can, the best you can tell, her signature is on the first page of that document. And so, sir, I want to know, is it possible that with these documents showed to table 16 different people plus 10 or 12 other people in the room on a compressed timeline, is it possible that that document was there, signed by Kathy Burton, you just had no knowledge of it?
Yes, I do, because one of the things is I wanted copies of everything. Not only just that one form that that authorized me, and that was blown, that was, use appropriate language, that was not responded to. Okay. So this could have been one of them. I don't know. It is possible. Yes.
And the Attorney General's office in your meetings with them never showed it to you. They only showed you the pages from the prosecution exhibit 11.
To the best of my recollection, that's correct.
Okay, sir. Just hang on to this for now. So you said that you asked questions, you asked for a copy and the purpose of this meeting, what the objective was. You eventually got there.
You eventually got the purpose.
And who delivered the purpose to you and told you that?
I still think it's one of the leaders, is Rener Rodriguez.
Not Kent Vanderwood.
No.
And those two purposes in your prior testimony were, one was to take this document, prosecution exhibit 11, and walk it down to the state capitol building by 2 p.m.
One is to first develop the slate of electors, and that's what that signing was for. Okay, to my understanding. Okay, and then it was then to deliver that. So there was a two-parter on that one.
Well, I have them backwards. That was my next question.
Okay, sorry.
Well, no, thank you.
Okay.
Clarified. So you're told, all right, we're gonna sign this alternate slate to memorialize that we would have voted for Donald Trump. And you say would have voted for Donald Trump because you were told to do that just as a contingency plan.
Is that a yes?
Not just verbal yes or no, sir.
Yes,
So your understanding, based on the instructions you received from people that you trusted, the authorities in the room, was that this was nothing more than a contingency plan just in case something changed with election results.
I wouldn't say a contingency plan. It was like, to the extent that first it would be delivered to the
Well, you're
Senate. Okay. And they
you're talking about the state senate.
the state Senate.
Okay.
Yes, I better, because, yes, I understand, the state Senate. Because they had, they could choose one of the other slates. Then, in the event there was a recount that found Trump at won the plurality of votes, the electors would not have to meet again. It was already done.
And that's the contingency.
That's correct. Yes.
For two purposes. One, take it down to the state capitol.
Right.
And then produce this alternate slate just in case.
Right.
Like a break in case of emergency, here you have it.
Yes, that's how I took, that's my takeaways.
And you never saw the first page of prosecution exhibit 11, that cover page with addresses to Washington DC and other where in Michigan.
Or to, no, I've never seen this.
So you didn't know that evidently someone was going to mail this to Washington DC.
That's correct.
That was not a purpose of this meeting that you were ever told or aware of.
That's correct.
Would it have changed your decision that day if you knew that that was what they were going to do with the document? Whoever they is, we don't really know.
It would have created, I would have demanded some answers.
More
Because,
questions.
yeah, because that, why would they do it? I don't understand. I mean, yes, it would have created a lot of questions and I would have asked a lot more questions. Or demanded some answers to questions, but it didn't happen.
And the leaders of that meeting, Kathy Bird and Maya Rodriguez, your fellow electors, they didn't tell you that was going to happen. This was gonna be-
No, I never heard that.
So you don't know who made that decision.
No, I don't know.
Now, sir, I want to talk about going to the Capitol. Do you remember Kent Vanderwood being involved at all in that discussion after the signing of the documents going to the Capitol?
I couldn't identify Kent, so I would say no.
Okay. And then someone told you to get in your car and leave the Michigan Republican Party headquarters.
No, they were. I didn't sequence.
Yeah, I don't know, you have a few
Okay,
times, so
okay.
I was been taking chunks. Let me try this, okay, so you're done with the documents,
Yes,
and there's this plan presented that we're going to take it to the Capitol,
yes,
and we're gonna get it there before 2 o'clock.
Correct.
So that we can present it to the state legislature and they'll do what they do with it.
Correct.
Okay, so from there, what is your decision process? What do you do?
okay, from there, they said park adjacent and we'll call you and then we'll collect at the annex. For the, and then we go in and make, the assumption we go in and make the presentation. Okay,
Why were you all going individually in your cars? Do you know?
no, I don't know.
Did that strike you as odd?
Well, it was a cold, windy day, and there were some individuals with some physical infirmity, so maybe they thought the walk was too long. Okay, I don't know, but it was, that's what jumped to my mind, why we didn't want that far.
And so then the plan was you'd all get phone calls. Did you give your phone number to anyone at that meeting?
I must have, I don't remember, but I must have, because they called me.
So you say you must have, because you don't have any other explanation for how this unknown caller got your phone number.
That's correct.
Is it possible they got it from someone else?
Could have,
Like, so you just don't know.
that's correct,
And you don't actually know who called you.
that's correct.
And that person called you and then told you to go to the Radisson Hotel.
Correct.
Do you remember seeing Kent Vanderwood at the Radisson Hotel?
Again, I don't know who Ken is, so I couldn't identify.
don't remember all the people who were at the Radisson Hotel.
Oh, no, there were too many. And I didn't know, other than like, the one farmer I talked to, I engaged with, that we had actual discussion. Kathy and Myra, that was it. Because I never associated with any of these people, had met them before.
You said it was a lot of people at the Radisson. I asked you this earlier in the basement. Can you estimate, best of your recollection, how many people were part of that meeting at the Radisson before going to the Capitol?
No, I could not.
Was it more than just the other electors?
In the Radisson?
Correct.
Yeah, I think the group in the Radisson was larger than the combined group in the basement.
So the combined group in the basement was somewhere between 16 electors plus 10 to 12 other people you don't know.
Correct.
There were even more people at Radisson.
If memory serves me, that's right.
If that's right, please, Bob.
No, I thought maybe there's some spouses and maybe there's some friends that met them and gonna party down at the Radisson after this whole thing was over. That's the only thing I could think of.
And you don't know who any of those other people were affiliated with.
No,
You don't know if they're from the Trump campaign or from the Michigan Republican Party,
that's correct.
but you know that some of them were not the other electors.
That's correct.
Give me just one moment, sir. I have a few more questions, Mr. Renner. The one is that you testified on direct that you weren't really familiar with the laws on challenging an election or the process for doing so. You remember that?
That's correct.
But then you also testified that the purpose of this meeting was to provide an alternate slate just in case something changed the election results.
That's correct.
How do you reconcile not knowing the laws behind that and then understanding that that was the purpose of this meeting, that it was okay?
Well, the challenging process, there was so much going on, whether there was a challenge, was it active, was it, and I'm only talking in Michigan, okay? So the mechanics of the challenge, I did not understand, okay, what it would require. But to be prepared in the event there was a successful challenge, then it seemed appropriate that there was a plan B in the event that happened. And that was, in my terms, plan B, and that was plan B.
And that plan B was not your idea either.
No, not at all.
And as far as you don't know, that it was kind of Underwood's idea.
No,
As far as you know, he was just asked to show up just like you.
Objection, speculation, and lack of foundation.
I'll move on, Your Honor.
Okay, just stand.
You don't know or had interaction with him that day, so you
No.
don't know anything about him.
well, first of all, I don't know what he looks like, but because I had very limited interaction with anybody other than the one farmer and the two neighbors.
I know you've already intended or testified you didn't intend to defraud anyone or injure anyone, right?
That's correct.
Did you intend to publish these documents?
No,
But you did intend to go to the Capitol and deliver them to the Senate.
that was the objective, yes.
And in your mind, though, that wasn't publishing a document, reporting a document, it was just what you were told to do.
That's correct.
And you don't remember coming into it or know whether or not he went to the Capitol with you.
That's correct.
It's possible that when that idea was presented, he simply went home.
Could have happened.
And he just abandoned you all and you went one way and he went the other.
It was cold and windy. I wouldn't have blamed him.
And it's possible because you didn't really understand that addition, or, you didn't understand all these purposes of what that meeting was until after you signed this document, right?
That's correct.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you, sir.
Yes, please. Mr. Renner, I'm going to ask you to turn to page 5 of Exhibit 11.
Hold it up, Mr. Leonard.
Thank you.
That's not page 5.
Oh, that is?
No.
Go fine. Is there a wall?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Now we're on the 5th page of Exhibit 11. Now, was that document shown to you before you were asked to sign pages 2 and 3 of Exhibit 11?
Let me go back.
No, I just need you to answer yes or no, or you don't recall.
You asked him before he signed pages 2 and 3.
Yes.
He only signed page 3.
Okay.
So objection, mischaracterizes it.
I'll just rephrase. Were you shown page 5 of Exhibit 11 before you were asked to review pages 2 and sign page 3?
My logic says yes, but I cannot recall it. Okay.
Now, were you shown page 5 on December 14, 2020?
This,
Yes.
yes, I was.
When you were shown page 5, was it already signed?
Yes. That's why I asked for a copy of it and never received it.
Do you remember who showed you page 5?
It's one of the two, either Ms. Rodriguez or Ms. Burton.
Try and keep your voice up.
Okay, either Ms. Rodriguez or Ms. Burton.
And when you were shown page 5, you asked for a copy.
Mhm.
You have to.
Yes, I did.
Okay. And page 5 identifies you as a replacement elector, correct?
That's correct.
Did you know what that term meant when you were shown page 5?
No.
Now, understanding that when you came to this meeting on December 14, 2020, you had questions about the final election results, correct?
Yes, I did.
Now, stay with me. Were you aware of how recounts are initiated in the state of Michigan?
No, I was not.
On December 14, 2020, were you aware that the period to request a recount was over?
I did not.
Okay. And when you were at the meeting, was it your testimony that you were told that this document could be accepted by the state legislature? And by this document, I mean pages 2 and 3 of Exhibit 11.
That's correct.
Were you aware that before December 14, 2020, the legislature stated they were not going to do anything as it related to altering the final election results in Michigan?
No, I was not.
You did not hear any news reports or see any news reports about statements from Lee Chatfield or Michael Shirkey?
No, I did not. I was following that closely.
Do you know who Lee Chatfield and Michael Shirkey were in 2020?
I know, I think Lee Chat, the Speaker of the House, but the other individual I have no knowledge of.
And if I told you that he was a Senate Majority Leader in 2020, would you have any independent knowledge of that?
No.
Now, you stated that you did not intend to publish pages 2 and 3 of Exhibit 11, is that correct? Okay. And do you understand that presenting it, presenting it to the Senate would be publishing the document?
Okay.
Judge calls for a legal conclusion.
I'm asking if he understands it.
No, I did not. No, I did not.
There's an objection, so I have to make a ruling before you can give an answer. Yes, did he understand
If presenting the document to the Senate would be publishing.
Same objection calls for a legal conclusion.
Well, I asked the question, the previous question was, did he intend to publish? And he said no, other than presenting it to the Senate. So I'm trying to clarify, did he understand that that was published?
Judge, I'm gonna also object. I mean, what law is that publishing? I mean, I haven't seen a
I
law, I
think-
haven't seen anything presented with Select Foundation.
I think the if she had formulated it more, did he understand that would be or could be considered publishing, then I'll allow it. I'll allow you to refer this, objective to state.
Thank you. On December 14th, 2020, did you understand that presenting pages 2 and 3 of Exhibit 11 could be considered publication of that document?
No,
Was that explained on December 14th to you in the meeting at the Michigan GOP headquarters?
no,
And what time did you arrive at Michigan GOP headquarters?
11:45.
And did you testify earlier that you were one of the last people to arrive?
That's correct. I did.
Is it fair to say you don't know what was said, what was or was not said before you arrived?
That's correct.
And was it your testimony that during the meeting that you were a part of, you were pretty much the only one asking questions?
Yes, I think I was. Yeah.
And other than ultimately getting an answer to what the objective of the meeting was, most of your questions went unanswered?
That's correct.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Nothing further, Judge.
Mr. Rener be excused
I do have a couple questions.
based on her questions.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Mr. Rener, you were just asked by the prosecution if you were aware of Mr. Shirkey and Mr. Chatfield's decision to not investigate further the election. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And you said you had no knowledge of that.
That's correct.
You also previously testified that there were lots of issues with the election. I didn't fully understand that was what you were hearing. That's part of the reason for why you showed up that day.
And I believe that exceeds the scope of my redirect.
I agree. Yeah, no, that question is being stricken. You don't need to answer it. You can I'm only allowing it for the limited purposes of it, what she addressed that was maybe slightly outside of the scope of what you addressed, because she's supposed to get the last question.
And I understand, Your Honor. My question is going to be just the opposite of those two, not disturbing the election. Basically, where was he hearing that there were still issues going on with the election?
I don't think that she asked anything about that.
And I respectfully. I have no further questions.
No.
Okay, Mr. Rener may be excused.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It's 11:25, but we definitely take a restroom break, but how many other witnesses do you have today?
One,
Okay, is that Agent Shaw?
yes.
Okay. So did you all want to break for lunch now and then shop? It's 11:30.
What time, if we didn't break for lunch now, Judge, when would we break?
I would imagine she would want to finish her direct first, and then we could probably break.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that probably makes
So a
sense.
quick break and then we come back
Sounds
after my direct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, thanks, Judge.
No problem. Okay, back on the record. You can call your next witness.
At this time, the people will call Special Agent Howard Shaw.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give us the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury.
I do, Your Honor.
Thank you. Have a seat.
Good morning, sir.
Morning,
Where do you work?
Michigan Attorney General's Office, Criminal Investigation Division,
And how long have you worked for the Department of Attorney General?
since October of 2022, so 2 years.
Do you have any law enforcement experience prior to that?
Yes,
Could you please tell us about that?
I served as a police officer since 1990, late 1997. And then retired in July of 2021.
Now, specifically referring to this case, I'm going to show you what has been admitted as People's Proposed Exhibit 11. Do you recognize that document, sir?
Yes,
And as, were you tasked with investigating, I guess, the creation of that document and how it ultimately was published allegedly?
yes,
When were you assigned to this investigation?
late December 2022.
And according to your investigation, when was that document actually created?
This was when it was, the document itself was created.
Well, signed and
Okay, signed December 14th, 2020.
so if my math is correct, which it usually isn't, that's almost two years after the creation of Exhibit 11 that you're assigned to investigate it.
Yes,
Does that create problems for your investigation?
yes.
Could you tell us what kind of problems that creates?
There's a, generally speaking, there's a loss of evidence. And what I mean by that is video evidence, usually it's lost because of retention periods. Cell phone data is lost because of retention periods. Sometimes witnesses, their memories over 2 years, the memories diminish. There's a change of personnel when you go back to organizations, and people have come and gone since then. And so it's also harder to track down people as well. People sometimes delete information or change information or don't, no longer want to cooperate and things like that.
So understanding that it may be difficult, how do you conduct an investigation regarding this document, sir?
Well, I take a look at the document. I contacted the Secretary of State to see what records they had on file. How did we come into contact with the document? Taking a look at the names who are on the document, started doing interviews, research, gathering information, that would assist with learning how this document was published and how it came to be.
Okay, now starting with the first thing you said, reaching out to the Secretary of State, what documents did you receive from the Secretary of State?
We received the certification from the Board of Canvassers, the candidates for electors for 2020 that was sent by the Republican Party to the Secretary of State, the certificate of ascertainment and certificate of votes for 2020.
I'm going to hand you what has been admitted as People's Proposed Exhibit 3. Could you please just identify what that document is for the record?
This is the official canvass of votes, Michigan presidential electors, dated November 3rd, 2020 for the general election.
Okay. I'm going to hand you what has been admitted as People's Proposed Exhibit 5. And could you identify for the record what that is?
Yes, this is the amended certificate of ascertainment, seal of the state of Michigan. certificate of filling of the vacancy for the Electoral College meeting on December 14th, 2020, signed by Jocelyn, or Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. And then the certificate of ascertainment signed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer and Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson.
Does the original certificate of ascertainment have a date on it?
Yes. It's November 23rd, 2020.
I'm gonna hand you exhibit 6, which has been previously omitted. Could you identify what that is for the record?
This is the certificate of votes for President and Vice President of the United States.
Or which year?
I'm sorry, for 2020.
And I'm gonna,
December 2020.
I'm gonna hand you exhibit 9, which is admitted. Could you identify what that is for the record?
Yes, this is the certificate of the Republican presidential electors elected at the Michigan Republican State Convention dated August 29th and 30th of 2020.
So at the beginning of your investigation, I believe you testified these were the documents that you received from the Secretary of State. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and how did these documents assist in the direction of your investigation?
Well, they laid out a foundation for me as far as what the legitimate certificate of votes looks like, the ascertainment, and also who was the Republican electors from 2020.
So specifically, and I'll try and go through each exhibit. Exhibit 3, the certification by the Board of Canvassers. What date did that certification occur?
23rd of November 2020.
And does that document indicate for which party the Michigan vote was certified for?
Yes,
Which party?
the Democratic Party.
Now, looking at exhibit 5, the 2020 certificate of ascertainment. And I want to start with the original certificate that was signed in November. Does that certificate of ascertainment, and I think for purposes of the record, that is page 9 of exhibit 5. Does that certificate identify for which party the vote for this, the electoral votes for the state of Michigan were awarded?
Yes,
And which party?
the Democratic Party.
Now, going to the amended ascertainment that is part of that document. And for purposes of the record, that is page 3 of exhibit 5. Does the amendment identify which parties nominees were considered the electors for the state of Michigan?
Yes,
And which party is that?
the Democratic Party.
And do both the amended and the original certificate of ascertainment identify the names of those considered to be the electors for the state of Michigan?
Yes,
And looking at exhibit 6, the 2020 certificate of votes. What was significant about that document for you?
well, it's something that I received from the Secretary of State as the legitimate certificate of votes for president and vice president.
And how does that compare to pages 2 and 3 of exhibit 11?
It's similar in terms of the language that's incorporated into the document. But the script or the graphics are different.
What about the signatures? Are they from this purported to be from the same people?
Are you, just to clarify, so you're asking me if the signatures from 6 and
The third page of Exhibit 11.
yes, they are not the same people.
Looking at Exhibit 9, the list of Republican electors from the fall of Michigan Convention. Why was that significant for your investigation?
Because I was able to determine that the names listed on this document matched the names listed on people's exhibit number 11.
Were there any differences?
Yes,
And what were those differences?
there was 2 signatures here that are on the third page that are not the names listed on people's exhibit number 9.
And what signatures are listed on Exhibit 11 that are not, that are different from those listed nominees for electors from Exhibit 9?
Let me just interject. I'm not sure where we're going with this testimony. It's entirely duplicative of what Mr. Brader testified to yesterday. So far, Mr. Schock hasn't identified anything other than what's in the documents that are already admitted in evidence. The objection is relevance from the standpoint that this is already evidence that's in the record.
Well, we're going through the course of this investigation and why this information is important to this investigation.
I guess that's where my objection is, Judge. All I've heard now is Mr. Schock just reading what's in these documents. We already have that in the record. So, if there is actual significance, I'd like to hear it, but we haven't
Well,
heard anything yet.
in order to establish what is or is not important to this investigation, we have to identify what he's referring to. Just because another witness has testified to it doesn't mean I can't refer to it with him, because it has to flesh out his testimony. Unless defense counsels aren't going to ask him specifics about his investigation on cross.
I'm inclined to believe that they are. So she's trying to lay some foundation before she gets to the line of questioning that she thinks is relevant from Agent Schock. So to that extent, I'll allow it.
Thank you. What were the 2 names that are different in Exhibit 11?
James Rener and Ken Thompson.
And why was that significant for your investigation?
Because it showed that this document obviously doesn't match the document that was received by the National Archives and the Office of the Senate.
Okay, well, because we're making a record, when you say this document, to the extent possible, could you try to refer to the exhibit numbers?
Yes, People's Exhibit 11 did not match. People's Exhibit 11 was received by the National Archives in the Senate, U.S. Senate, and those names listed on that document were different than the names listed on People's Exhibit 9.
2 of the names are
2 of
different,
the
correct?
names, yes, 2 of the names, Ken Thompson and James Rener.
Okay, and where do you take your investigation from here after receiving and reviewing the documents from the Secretary of State?
I take it to the U.S. Senate and the National Archives to find out how did they receive the document. Was it in person or by mail, or did somebody hand it to them?
Were you able to actually get an answer to that?
Yes,
And what was the answer?
it was received by mail, by U.S. mail.
Okay, and did you follow up to determine if you could identify who actually mailed the documents to the National Archives and to the President of the Senate?
I did,
How did you do that?
by contacting an inspector with the U.S. Post Office to try to determine, using the tracking number to try to determine which post office it may have been mailed from.
Okay, now you said tracking number. Where was there a tracking number?
There was a tracking number on the envelope
Of the documents that were
that
sent?
were, yes,
Okay. And were you able to identify using the tracking number the person that actually mailed the documents?
using the tracking number alone now.
During your investigation, were you actually able to identify who was responsible for mailing the documents?
I have evidence to suggest that Sean Flynn was responsible for mailing the document.
And that was developed during the course of your investigation?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, was that in the early months of your investigation, or was that later on?
That was later.
Okay, so is it fair to say that the registered mail label did not provide identification?
Yes.
What did you do once you could not identify using the registered mail label?
Once I couldn't, what I did,
Well, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
What course did you take with the investigation after that?
we began to identify those that have worked for the Michigan GOP party at the time. Also sending off these signatures to the questionable document section at the Michigan State Police Crime Lab to determine if signatures matched the signatures that were on file with their department.
And were you able to obtain anything that would be used to compare those signatures?
Yes,
And where did you get that information?
from the Department of Elections was one area or one department, and there was another one, a county clerk's office as well. We were able to get some documents that had signatures on them.
And where did you submit those documents?
To the Michigan State Police Crime Lab, the questionable documents section. They also use their driver's license signatures to assist with the identification of those signatures.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move to admit people's proposed exhibits 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 and 21 pursuant to MCL 76611B. They are Michigan State Police forensic reports, laboratory number LS 23-1382, all authored by Mackenzie Way, WEYH, a forensic scientist in the question document unit. And the records are sequentially numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Objection.
Your Honor, for the admission purposes only, I have no objection, but to the truth and verification process that the Michigan State Lab used, I would object to that being accurate. I don't have any problem with the stipulation of admitting them into evidence, but not as to their accuracy.
And specifically as to this exam, record 1, which is marked as exhibit 16, states that inasmuch as it is possible to examine a digital image in lieu of the original document, it is my opinion that Kent Vanderwood wrote the question Kent Vanderwood signature on item 1A3. Record 2, which is marked as people's proposed exhibit 17, states as follows. Inasmuch as it is possible to examine a digital image in lieu of the original document, it is my opinion that Timothy King wrote the question Timothy King signature on items 1A3 and 1A7. And exhibit 21, record 6. States as follows. Inasmuch as it is possible to examine a digital image in lieu of the original document, it is my opinion that Stanley wrote the question Stanley wrote signatures on pages 12, 13, 14, and 16 of the item 6A document. identification. Now, as far as you've talked about the potential for loss of evidence because of the age of, well, the delay in the start of the investigation. Were you able to locate any video that was pertinent to either the incident itself or to your investigation?
Yes,
And how did you do that, sir?
just through an open source search through YouTube, also through Twitter.
And specifically referring to what has been admitted by stipulation, commonly referred to as a YouTube video, but People's Exhibit 12. Did you actually locate and preserve that video for this for your investigation?
I located it. It was preserved prior to me taking on the investigation.
Okay. Now, as far as that video itself, other than just preserving it, during the course of your investigation, were you able to confirm that that video was an accurate depiction of the events it purports to record?
Yes.
And how did you do that?
The investigator prior to me had interviewed First Lieutenant Green, and after reviewing that report, he said that it was an accurate depiction of what took place.
And did you actually review the video that's marked as Exhibit 12 yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Permission to approach. Well, we said from that statement. I'm going to hand you a series of still photographs marked collectively as People's Exhibit 13, but they are labeled as A through F. Did you look through those?
Yeah.
Do you recognize those?
Yes.
And where do you recognize them from?
From the video that was preserved.
Is that from the YouTube video or a separate? Video?
I'm sorry, yes, from the YouTube video.
And are those accurate still images from Exhibit 12?
Yes.
People would move to the People's Proposed Exhibit 13. No, the video is 12.
Oh, the video,
It's
yeah.
stills.
That's fine. No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Hand you what has been marked collectively as People's Proposed Exhibit 15. It's 6 still images individually labeled A through F. Could you look through those, please?
Okay.
Do you recognize those images?
Yes.
And where do you recognize those images?
There's a Twitter account. It's called I believe it's called Eric Lloyd Twitter account. Posts a video on there. So these are the stills from that video.
And was that video also preserved as part of your investigation?
Yes.
And just for the record, Your Honor, that video has been admitted as People's Exhibit 14. The still images that you're looking at, are those accurate still images captured from that video?
Yes.
If people would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 15.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Now, in reviewing the video that you were able to locate on open source, how did that assist with your investigation?
The video assisted by demonstrating there was an effort to publish the certificate of votes for the Republican Party at the door at the Capitol there.
And were you able to make any identifications from the video?
Yes,
Okay, and how were you able to do that?
through taking the names that are on the certificate of votes and looking up driver's license photos and then matching those photos to the people here that we're seeing on video.
And and so were you only able to identify persons in the video that signed Exhibit 11?
No,
Who else were you able to identify?
there's Representative Dare Rendon. The witness, Steve Unruh,
Which exhibit are you looking at?
Exhibit 15.
Okay, and you said you were able to identify Representative Dare Rendon on which photo?
I'm sorry, on People's Exhibit 15, Photo A.
Okay, and who else were you able to identify that? We're not talking about the false electors yet, just
Okay.
other people who were going to the Capitol.
Representative Matt Maddock on People's Exhibit 15, C, page C. And there's a woman here on the first page on A, People's Exhibit 15, page A. I don't recall her name, but we were able to identify her as well.
Okay. And just exclusively staying with Exhibit 15, were you able to identify persons that actually signed Exhibit 11 that were walking to the Capitol?
Yes,
And who were you able to identify, again, referring to the letter for each photo?
okay, so James Rener on People's Exhibit 15, page A, Marianne Sheridan, page A, Amy Facinello, page B, Marianne Sheridan, Michonne Maddock again on page B, Ken Thompson, Marianne Sheridan, Amy Facinello, Michonne Maddock, page C. Timothy King, Marianne Henry, Ken Thompson, Michonne Maddock on page D. And then on page E, Ken Thompson, Michonne Maddock. On page F, Hank Choate, James Renner.
Now, just looking at the videos alone, were you able to either establish one way or the other if all 16 signers to Exhibit 11 actually walked over to the Capitol?
On Exhibit 11?
The people who signed Exhibit 11?
Oh, the people who signed it, yes.
Okay.
Did all of them walk?
Yeah,
over
do
there?
you know if all 16 walked over?
No, I don't believe so.
And how do you know that based on your investigation?
I have not found any video evidence to show that all 16 walked over.
So after recovering and preserving video, where do you go next with your investigation, sir?
Did some search warrants for cell phone records, call data records for Kathy Burden, Michonne Maddock, Marianne Sheridan. I think there was one more, I don't recall.
Okay, and what were you looking for in the phone records?
Just initially, I was looking for information that would put their phones in this area at that time. But again, 2 years later, that information didn't exist. So I had called detail records, which showed phone conversations, incoming, outgoing calls to and from, and then some text messages as well.
And was that for all of the call records that you requested or for specific persons?
That was for the specific persons for those call records. So I was asking for all that information, cell tower location, GPS data, things like that, but the only thing that was available was the incoming, outgoing call records, and then Mrs. Burden's text messages.
And did you review those text messages?
Yes,
And did that assist you with your investigation?
yes.
How so?
There were some statements that were made back and forth, and I don't recall what the specific statements were, but discussing their meeting on the 14th.
And how did the text conversation forward your investigation, or where did it lead you?
It led to interviews with the GOP workers.
And were you able to interview all of the GOP, I guess, employees that were employed at the time of December 14th, 2020?
I believe I was able to interview all those that were involved with this particular incident.
And how or what information did you glean from those interviews that assisted with your investigation?
Well, I learned that there was a that these electors or people were called to the Michigan GOP headquarters shortly before December 14th. When I say what I mean by shortly, a couple of days before December 14th, and asked to report to the GOP headquarters for a meeting. There was a security personnel at the door, or pseudo security. I guess they were acting as security people, collecting cell phones or not allowing people in. There was a meeting in the basement, and there was documents that were laid out on tables in the basement, and the GOP workers say that. I don't want to get into that, but anyways, that's what I have.
So based on your interviews with the Michigan GOP workers that you were able to contact, how did that assist your investigation or help with the progress?
Well, it demonstrated that there was a meeting on December 14th, that the people that's names are on the 2020 certificate of votes, which is people's exhibit number 11, also matched up with people's exhibit 9. All but 2 were there on the 14th. And all but those 2 that weren't there signed the documents. And then replacements, I've also learned that replacements, an effort was made to get replacements for the 2 that weren't there. Again, that was Terry Land and Gerald Wall. And the effort was made to get replacements there, James Rener and Ken Thompson, in order to have 16 people there to sign this document.
What's the significance of having 16 people there?
Would be the number of electors needed to meet the requirement the electors for the state of Michigan for either the Democratic or the Republican Party.
Now, outside of the exhibit that's marked as People's 11, did your investigation develop information that there was another document that was presented at the December 14th, 2020 meeting?
Yes.
And tell us about that document, what you learned about that document.
There was, through an interview with Troy Hudson, I learned that.
Hang on, I'm gonna object, Judge, it's here, sorry. He's talking about the interview with Troy Hudson. We haven't even identified, by the way, what document we're talking about now.
What is your objection to hearsay?
I'm trying to lay a foundation. I will try to avoid hearsay.
Objection sustained.
Okay.
Still need to identify the document.
Well, I have to do that through the witness. Now, I have to backtrack. During the course of your investigation, did you learn that another document was presented during the December 14th, 2020 meeting?
Yes.
How did you learn about this additional document? And not what was told to you, but how did you learn about it?
I was provided a copy of it.
And who provided you with a copy?
Troy Hudson's attorney, Eric Dawson.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor? Sorry, it's ingrained.
I understand.
Exhibit 28. I'm gonna hand you what has been admitted as People's Exhibit 28 and ask if you recognize that document.
Yes.
What is that document, sir?
This was a document that was created as recognition. It's a document that was created in recognition of the electors and that stating that if
Well, I don't want you to.
I'm trying to describe it here. It's acknowledging that they're available to meet and perform their duties as presidential electors as required by the Constitution. Does that answer your question?
No.
Okay.
Was that the document that was provided to you by Mr. Doster?
Yes.
And based on
You
your,
said Mr. Doster?
yes,
Yes.
I believe the witness said
Sure.
Eric Doster, and just for the record, I think his last name is Doster. And based on your investigation, were you able to confirm that this was in fact a document that was presented during that December 14th, 2020 meeting?
I'm gonna object, Judge. I can't see how there's any basis for admission for this question other than hearsay, but also it's vague and lacks foundation. What do we mean by presented? Presented how? Given to people, laid out on a table? It's problematic.
Yeah, so there's two
objections.
There's two objections. Did you want to address this?
Trying to recall the objections.
One
One
is
was what?
that there's no other way he believes
Lack
that
of
this could come.
foundation.
Well, that this answer would have to come from hearsay first.
That's right.
First.
Well, he can't testify to hearsay, but I mean, he's gonna get hearsay during the course of this investigation. If it's something that he gleaned during his investigation, he's allowed to draw conclusions from that.
I disagree, Judge. In order for there to be proper foundation for the admission of this document, which hasn't been laid yet, Mr. Schock needs to be asked how he got a copy of it. Now, that's fine. The next step is, was this document presented? And we haven't laid any foundation as to what leads up to this.
So your question or your objection is that the question of what this document presented would cause for hearsay. That's your objection?
Well, there's two. It's vague first. What do we mean by presented?
Of course, and then
and the
that's a
second
separate
one.
objection. I'm just dealing with the hearsay objection right
That's
now,
right.
which she was in the middle of responding to.
I apologize.
So-
And one, this exhibit has already been admitted, so I'm not laying a foundation for its admission. I'm laying a foundation for how it fits into his investigation. So all he's testifying to is how he received it during the course of his investigation and what, if any, significance it had to his investigation. The document has already been admitted through Troy Hudson.
So you're using the document that's already been admitted, not essentially for the truth of the matter asserted, but in this purpose for him to explain what he did.
I don't want to say it, but effect on the listener.
Yeah.
That objection would be overruled. As to the second objection, which was not defining, or it's vague as to what presented, I think the word was used. Yes,
Yeah,
presented.
and Judge, I need to be clear about this too, because the question was, how was this document presented at the December 14th meeting?
That was not my question.
That's exactly what I had heard.
That was not my question. My question
Well-
was during the course of it, was he able to determine during his investigation that this document was the additional document presented during the meeting? Not how was it presented?
Right, I think the term, though the issue is defining presented, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Counsel?
I was gonna clarify that was the question. That was all your-
Okay, so I think the concern is that the term presented is vague. We can always ask him how it was presented, or how did he determine it was presented to clear
Well,
that up.
that was gonna be my next question.
I'll hold my ruling on his objection.
Thank you. During the course of your investigation, were you able to confirm that Exhibit 28 was in fact the other document presented during the December 14th, 2020 meeting?
Yes,
And how were you able to confirm that?
my interview with Troy Hudson.
During your investigation, were you able to determine if if Exhibit 28 was actually signed at the meeting?
What part of my investigation? So all the way up until present day?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. Now, at what point in your investigation did you learn that the document was signed?
it was December of 2023. When there was an attorney proffer with Mrs. Burden's attorney.
Prior to meeting with counsel, did you actually have a copy of a signed copy of what is Exhibit 28?
No,
Have you seen a signed copy of Exhibit 28 since that meeting?
yes,
And for purposes of the record, Your Honor, I believe that's Defense Exhibit A. I don't know what they did with it. Your Honor. So you've conducted interviews, you retained video, you requested phone records, you have documents from the Secretary of State. What's the next course you take in your investigation, sir?
looking at some of the court cases, looking at court cases at that time that were going on. And then there was interviews with the National Archives and the Secretary for the Senate, U.S. Senate as well.
Now, I'm gonna start in the reverse. Why were you conducting interviews with the National Archives and the Secretary of Senate?
To confirm that they received the document, was there anything else received with the document? To establish that chain of custody, how was the document received? What did they do with the document? Did they publish the document?
And when you say they, who's that?
The folks at the personnel at the National Archives or staff at the U.S. Senate office.
Okay. And I think we've already talked about how the document was received by both of them. So you said you also looked into court cases from the time of between November 2020 and I guess December 2020. Did you say that?
Yes.
Okay. And why was that important to your investigation?
I just was trying to determine if there was any court ruling that would have ordered the Republican electors in Michigan here to meet and sign a certificate of vote.
Okay. Could you find any court orders that ordered the Republican electors to vote on December 14th, 2020?
No,
Could you find any court orders or court opinions granting a temporary restraining order to stop the Democratic slate from voting on December 14th, 2020?
no,
Did you find any court orders that ordered a change to the ultimate election results?
no,
What about a recount? Did you see any information that a recount was ordered?
no,
Was a recount requested?
no.
What about excuse me, lost my train of thought. Please strike that. Did you find any statutes or policies that would have given a slate other than the Democratic Party the authority to vote on December 14th, 2020?
No.
And how was that information or lack thereof important to your investigation?
There was, after looking into and coming to that conclusion, there was no order for them to meet and vote, and then, try and serve the vote upon the Senate, either at the state capitol or the US Senate.
And during your investigation, did you look for evidence that would show either an attempt to publish Exhibit 11 or actual publication of Exhibit 11?
Yeah,
And what evidence did you find?
the attempt to publish it was at the video of some of the electors walking over to the Capitol, the Michigan Capitol building, and meeting with the state police, trying to serve that envelope, which serve that envelope with the documents to the state police or to the Senate. They were denied entry. And then the other would be the envelopes that were received by the National Archives and the Office of the US Senate.
Now, as part of your investigation, did you look for evidence of an intent to defraud?
Yeah,
Did you find evidence of an intent to defraud?
yeah.
Could you tell us about that?
The media videos, I should say, the social media posts and things like that supported that evidence to defraud. There was an effort to deliver this document. This is People's Exhibit, I think it's 11. Yes, People's Exhibit 11 to the Senate chamber at the state capitol, the state of Michigan Capitol building. And then there was an effort to deliver those to Vice President Michael Pence at the time. And those documents were taken from Michigan to Washington, D.C. And there was an effort on January 5th to deliver those documents to Mike Pence. And then there was an effort on January 6th to deliver those documents to Mike Pence.
Now, specifically referring to Exhibit 11, pages 1, 2, and 3, were you able to determine during your investigation either who actually created those documents or those pages?
Yes.
And how were you able to determine that?
Well, yes and no. I mean, the general template, yes. What I found was that Ken Chesborough created the initial document. The information that I received from Ken, emails and this document itself, was slightly different than the document that I have here on is People's Exhibit 11.
Okay.
So it was changed, just minor changes with a few words from what we have here as People's Exhibit 11. But everything else was the same.
I know, I just didn't want to waste any more time. while we're looking through it.
Four, 25, and 26. Yes, this one too. All right. Sir, I'm going to hand you what has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 24. And starting with the first pages, could you identify what that is?
Yes, it's an email from Ken Chesbro to Marianne Sheridan dated December 10th, 2020, 8:51 PM. Attached to that email is draft certificate of Michigan Trump Pence electors doc.
I'm sorry, Mr. Shock, what was the date on that?
Oh,
I
I'm
missed it.
Yeah, no problem. December 10th, 2020, 8:51 PM.
Thank you.
And just for purposes of clarification, how is Marianne Sheridan connected with your investigation?
She was one of the, she's one of the individuals who was originally on the certificate of Republican presidential electors that was sent to the Secretary of State. She was also the one who signed off on the 2020 certificate of votes for the Republican Party.
And Exhibit 11 was executed on December 14th, 2020.
Yes,
And you stated that the email between Mr. Chesbro and Ms. Sheridan was sent on December 10th, 2020.
yes.
And what was the document that was attached?
Draft certificate of Michigan Trump Pence electors doc. And then also there was another PDF attached. Well, there's two other PDFs attached as well versus.
Well, to the document itself, the Exhibit 24. Just was attached to that.
The certificate of votes, 2020 electors from Michigan.
People would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 24.
No objection.
No objections.
No objection, Your Honor.
24 is admitted. Now, prior to the admission of Exhibit 24, you said there were some slight changes that were made with the, I guess we can call it just the Exhibit 11.
Yes.
And could you identify, just for the record, what those differences are between pages 4, 5, and 6 of Exhibit 24 and the pages 2 and 3 of Exhibit 11?
Yes. So exhibit number 24, second paragraph A, where it says that we convene and organize at the state capitol in the Senate chamber. That is omitted from People's Exhibit 11. Page 2, Marianne Sheridan is listed as secretary. That's on People's Exhibit 24, People's Exhibit 11. Maya Rodriguez is listed as the secretary. So the certificate to fill the vacancy of the 2020 electors from Michigan on Exhibit 24 shows again Marianne Sheridan as the secretary, but on People's Exhibit 11 shows Maya Rodriguez as the secretary.
In the hand you what has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 25. Could you identify that for us, please?
This is an email from Ken Chesborough on December 10th, 2020 at 10:26 PM with a attachment to Marianne Sheridan.
I'm sorry, what was the date again?
This December 10th, 2020 at 10:26 PM.
And can you describe the attachment for us?
Yes, it's a draft of cover memo to be enclosed with certificate. And that attachment has the memorandum. Has a memorandum on it which matches the memorandum on People's Exhibit number 11.
People that move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 25.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Five minutes. I'm going to hand you what is been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 26 and ask you to identify that.
This is email from Marion Sheridan to Ken Chesborough dated December 14th, 2020 at 6:21 PM.
And are there any attachments?
No,
It's just text in the body.
yes,
Would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 26.
No objection.
No objection, Jim.
No objection.
And
26 minutes.
and what is the text in the body?
we did it, exclamation point.
Now, I think we briefly touched on social media and posts possibly being dismissed. But did you make any requests for social media for the Republican slate of electors?
Yes,
And were you able to obtain any returns for any of the slate?
yes,
Now specifically as to Timothy King, Stanley Groton, Kent Vanderwood, were you able to obtain any social media returns for those three?
yes,
You were?
Yeah.
Did you look through them?
yes.
Anything significant?
There was just text that showed that they were receiving messages that talked about the election, the presidential election. And the fact that I can remember one specifically, it was on November 15th, that describes Jocelyn Benson is about to certify the election. Talks about a recount, but I don't remember the specifics without referring to my notes.
Okay, and because we can't make assumptions, as it relates to Timothy King, Stanley Groton, Kent Vanderwood, why were you looking into them in your investigation?
Well, their names were on the document here, and I wanted to look into those social media posts because oftentimes posts are made and then they're deleted. You can also direct message with certain social media platforms. In this particular case, I was looking at Facebook or Meta, which includes Instagram and then Twitter.
Okay. And for purposes of the record, is Mr. Stanley Groton present in the courtroom?
Yes,
And can you identify him for the record by what he's wearing?
yes, he's wearing a blue blazer, yellow tie, and blue and white striped shirt.
Thank you. And for purposes of the record, is Mr. Timothy King present virtually or in person in the courtroom?
Yes,
And can you describe what he's wearing?
blue shirt and a blue tie.
And as far as Kent Vanderwood, is he present in the courtroom?
No,
I would ask for a stipulation that when we refer to Kent Vanderwood, we're referring to your client, Mr. Kent Vanderwood, also mayor of Wyoming.
Identification's voted.
And finally, were you able to obtain social media returns for Kenneth Thompson?
yes,
And how was that, how did that assist you in your investigation?
I was able to locate a photo of the 16 individuals posing for a photo. together on, I forget the date that it was posted, but they were all together. It was around December. I don't remember the specific date. Can't remember if it was posted just after or on the day of.
I'm gonna hand you what has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 22. And just starting with the first page, can you just grab that page first, please?
Yes, this is the certificate of authenticity from Meta, certifying the records that they presented to us.
Okay, and the records themselves, do you recognize those? And for purposes of the record, this is not the entirety of the return. Okay. As far as the pages that are attached to that certification, can you just briefly describe what those pages are?
It's the business, they call it the business record. So it's the return, which contains email addresses, names, script, URL. And photos.
What are the photos?
Photos are the 16 individuals that signed the 2020 certificate of votes for the Republican Party for the Michigan.
Is that the only photo?
There's photos also of them at the Michigan Capitol building, which matches the YouTube video that I saw as well, and the Twitter video from Mayor Floyd.
And does that return indicate a date in which those photos were either shared or posted?
Yes,
And what is that date and time?
that's December 15th, 2020. This is in UTC time, 01:22 hours. Sent. That's the photo of all 16 individuals together.
Okay, people would move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 22.
No objection. No objection.
No objection.
People's 22 is admitted. So I'm gonna hand you People's Exhibit 23, which has been admitted. Can you just for the record state what that is?
Yes, this is a group photo that was talked about in my interviews and throughout my investigation. It's a photo of all 16 electors for the 2020 certificate of votes.
And for purposes of the record, the three defendants in this exam, Mr. Timothy King, Mr. Kent Vanderwood, and Mr. Stanley Grote, are they depicted in that photo?
Yes.
Nothing further of this witness at this time.
About 1 o'clock. So we can recess. Hour and 10 minutes. We'll pick up cross examination.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
This door will be locked, so if you need to access it, you just gotta knock on the judicial office door.
Oh, don't worry about it.
We're gonna lock this door, so if you need to access in between that hour and 10, you just gotta knock on the office door.
Thank you, Ron.